1 2 1 2, testing the mic. Yes, good morning. Simon Peter Kadapao. I work with CCG. I would like to officially invite you to start this meeting. Thank you very much for honoring our invite. Today's workshop is on enhancing understanding and compliance with the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019 and 2021 regulations in Uganda. Hoping that everyone has a program. We shall be guided by the program that everyone has. To start with, we shall start with introductions. But before we start with introductions, I would like a volunteer to lead us in a prayer. Any volunteer? The mic is here. Who can help me move the mic around? You tell us your name, what you do, and what's unique about you. Only those three.
We thank you this beautiful morning. We thank you for the gift of life. We bless you, Father, as we begin this meeting. We ask you to come and guide us in whatever we are going to deliberate on. We receive the grace and the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to comprehend whatever we are going to talk about and make this day a beautiful one to the glory of your name. In Jesus' name.
I pass the mic to your colleague to introduce themselves. Tell us your name, what you do, and what's unique about you, so that we can also learn. What's special thing that we can learn from you?
Good morning to you all. My name is Gloria Mnyanda, representing Teller Logistics. Technology. I embrace technology in all aspects.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melody Nakalansi. I volunteer with Mentorship for Young Women in Uganda. That is MEMPRO.
Hello.
Members, let's try to be very loud because this is a recording, so later on we shall be able to view. And it's also live streaming, so kindly you be loud.
Okay, is this loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Aloyo Nyeko Omega. I work as the Advocacy and Communications Officer at FIDA Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, that's more like it. My name is Frank Chigoy. I work with the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, based here in Ntinda. Glad to be here and to meet all of you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Peace Pimer, and I'm the Executive Director at Nile Girls Forum. Happy to be here.
Good morning. My name is Faith Okaka-Uwize, and I work with the Center for Policy Analysis.
Good morning. My name is David Richard Ntale. I am a medical lab technician, but I'm here as a member of the Alliance for National Transformation. And what is unique about me is that I love everyone. You know, in politics today, there's a rhetoric of the oppressed fighting against the oppressor, but we do love the oppressed and the oppressor. And the Alliance for National Transformation is the option for you if you want a peaceful transition.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nakachwa Rebecca Mlindwa. I work with the Site Savers. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kiza Ronald. I work with AYDL. And I'm also representing another CSO known as Center for Climate, Accountability, and Transportation. I love technology.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Viola Natmanya. I work with CCG on internship.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ajuro Joan, and I'm representing Shitective Uganda. It's a CSO, youth-led. And what I'm passionate about is I just love to see togetherness among people living in peace and harmony. Yes, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chiwewa Inia. I'm representing Alliance for Finance Monitoring.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayonga Benon. I work with the Electoral Commission, Public Relations Department.
Good morning. My name is Brunje Sanyu. I work with her internet as the communications lead there. I also do customized branding. I do customized branding on t-shirts, hoodies, and anything else that you would love to customize.
Good morning, everyone. Irene Marunga, and I work at Women of Uganda Network as a communications associate. What's unique about me? I'll always laugh.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gadra Jazz, social media influencer. I love writing.
My name is Akanshina Dorin, social media influencer. I love reading.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Badach Ronald Avasa, founder of Badach IT Solutions, and I also work with CCG. I love technology.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yasmin Ahmed. I am the Director of Programs at Femtech Law Initiative. And what's unique about me is I just love to be happy. And I'm not really a fan of conflict, so I try to avoid it as much as possible.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kaiga Beatrice from Internet Society Uganda chapter. What's unique about me? Swimming. Not like the slay queens who go and sit in the shallow end. Yeah, I'm also a competitive swimmer, so thank you.
Morning, everyone. I am Dorinandutu Nabuzale, telecom engineer by training. Currently working with eLab Limited. However, I am representing Shitective today. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have heard what's unique about you. I think there's a representation from all spheres as regards to the target group in this project. Be reminded that this is a digital rights project, and I want to believe that all of us are very active on social media, especially Twitter. We have our Twitter handles here. It should be Digital Rights UG and the RISI project. So when you are tweeting, kindly use those hashtags. I've already written them there. So we should all popularize this project, and then amplify the training. It will really look bad after this training, and the hashtags are not training. So our intended purpose today is to see that we grasp knowledge, but also the hashtag should trend. So kindly, I call upon all of us to tweet using those two hashtags. Without wasting time, I know we are behind schedule. I would like to invite our head of programs, Judith Atim, to give us our welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Guys, is it because we haven't had tea? Good morning. Okay, before I ask someone to come and give you some warm-up exercise. So I'm happy to see you all here. My name is Judith Atim. I am the head of programs at the Center for Constitutional Governance, and it is my utmost pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to today's training on enhancing understanding and compliance with the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019 and 2021 regulations in Uganda. We are honored to be the implementing partner for the RECIPE project. RECIPE stands for Recentering the Civic Internet through Partner Engagement, and we are implementing this. This is a strong collaboration between our organization and our valued partners at Oxfam. And this RECIPE project has been instrumental, of course. The support of Oxfam has helped us a lot to have this gathering today. You all know that our world is increasingly becoming digital, and data is a fundamental asset. As an organization, you can't do away with data. It is the lifeblood of your organization. It is a foundation for innovation. It is also a powerful tool for change. But also, data gives us a lot of power, and with great power comes greater responsibility expected from each of us as individuals and our organizations. The way your data is collected, the way you collect, you process, and use personal data has to be handled with utmost care and responsibility, because you have to protect the rights and privacy of the people whose data is in your hands. The passing of the Data Protection and Privacy Act in 2019, along with its subsequent regulations, was a significant step forward for our country's legal framework. This legal frameworks established the clear set of rules for how we must handle data, and so it is our duty collectively and individually to understand and adhere to them. And that's why we are all here today. The objective of this training is very clear: to equip each of you or each of us with the in-depth legal knowledge, the practical data governance skills, and the essential risk management strategies that we all need to uphold data privacy rights, and also to foster accountability within Uganda's data ecosystem. So it's not just about compliance also, it's about building trust. When we come together as individuals and communities, and we know that our data is handled responsibly, as people, we are more willing to engage, we're more willing to share information, and we're also more willing to participate in initiatives that drive positive social change. I am particularly excited today about the expertise that we have in our midst. We are fortunate and honored to have Counsel Peter Majela, who is a highly respected and distinguished lawyer in Uganda, as our facilitator for all the sessions today. Counsel is a leading voice in the legal community, and his deep knowledge of the subjects will definitely leave you a different person at the end of the day. He's going to guide us through the intricacies of the law. He'll share practical insights and help us navigate the complexities of data privacy. And at the end of the day, I'm sure we are all going to leave here more confident and more knowledgeable about all these legal frameworks around data. So over the next few hours, you have the program. We'll take a deep dive into 4 critical sessions, starting with a comprehensive overview of the key provisions of the Data Protection Act, understanding its scope, applicability, and the rights it grants to every data subject. From there, we'll move on to a detailed discussion of the roles and responsibilities of key actors, clarifying the duties of data collectors, processors, and controllers, as well as the important role of Data Protection Office. And our third session will focus on the lawful processing of personal data. And this is where we get into the issues of consent, transparency, and implementing robust security measures. We'll also touch on the complexities of maybe cross-border data transfers. I don't know, I hope Peter will touch on that. And finally, we'll dedicate time to managing risks and challenges in data privacy. So I encourage you all to engage fully ask the tough questions. I have attended a few sessions facilitated by Council Peter, and I know some of you have, and you will bear witness that he does not like you to just sit and listen. He wants you to be more engaging. He wants to have a conversation with us, and the feedback, the questions that you ask, and the contributions that you make will definitely add so much value to the training that we're having today. So by the end of the day, we are confident that you'll leave here not just with a clearer understanding of your obligations, but also with the confidence to implement best practices within your own organizations. When you talk about data, I'm sure from now on you will understand the legal frameworks that underpin data and how we engage and relate with this. Thank you once again for your presence and for your dedication. I know it's a busy season, but it means a lot to see you all here taking time to be with us. It means you consider this an important discussion. So let's just make this day productive and insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for elaborately taking us through what this training is all about. And I'm very happy that we have been able to engage in this discussion. I feel that data protection legal framework is a virgin component that all of us were lacking the knowledge. So this workshop is really important for us to really dig out what this legal framework is all about. And we're happy that Councillor Magera is here to take us through. So without further ado, I would like to officially welcome Councillor Magera to take us through the legal framework.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Majela Peter Guayaka, and yeah, I'll be here taking you through data protection. I don't know what has happened. Okay, it's on. Should be showing by now. Says no signal. Maybe my laptop. I sent this by email to Rita. Maybe if she has a laptop. Okay. It has fired. I have a problem with these things. Those who know me, I rarely present on PowerPoint. So, and actually, it's this morning I decided to do a PowerPoint, but otherwise I talk off cuff. Maybe as they sort this out, we still can be talking. I'm one who don't believe in being a slave of technology. We might need to change the laptop because it seems to have refused both. I sent her. Okay, let's be seeing how to sort this out. Now, We are here for data protection, right? To discuss data protection. My sessions really would be question and answer because I don't have the answer. I don't have what to present to you. But you people have what I need. Question and answer. And I just need to know, how many have heard about data protection for the first time? Just by show of hands. Okay, so we've all have heard about data protection, right? Okay, how many of us are registered with Data Protection Office in terms of hands? I run about 4 institutions, they are all registered. CCG is registered, yes, I checked before I came. Who else? We don't know. Okay. We know. So we are not registered. Yeah, I'm talking about the organizations. Okay. Okay, how many of us in here are data protection officers? Okay, there is one here. Any other? Okay. How many of us here have violated the law? From the hands we've put up, how many have, you bring it backwards. You bring it backwards so it will be wider. Bring the table. No, just the table backwards. So it gets wider. Okay. Okay. See the more it comes backward, the wider the view. Okay, so it seems many of us are violating the data protection law. But we shall see. Maybe I'll need to ask the other question is on, when we talk about data protection, we talk about personal data, you know? We don't talk about any other data. There is a lot of data out there. But our concern for today will be personal data. And that leads me to the next question. What is personal data? We can use examples. Yes. Okay. Okay. He said name. Correct. That's personal data. Date of birth. Yes, that's personal data. He said email. Yes, email is also personal data. Any other? Yes. Your location? Yes. Location. Photos? Yes. Uh-huh. Any other? Yes, please. Pardon? Academic documents, yes. You can pass it. Huh?
Phone number.
Phone number, yes. Uh-huh. Any other?
Social security.
Social security, that's NSSF and TIN and NIN. Okay, tax identification number, national identification number. Yes, the fingerprints and the eye. What about your face?
Including my face. It's all my biodata.
Okay, so of course people categorize it into biodata, identity data, what. I don't want to go into those. They sound more academic than practical. You see, you are more likely to remember that your name is personal data than if I told you your bio. So you start figuring out what your biodata is. Yeah. So, but from across the room, we get an appreciation of what personal data is. Not so? Okay, so my day is done. Yeah, because I came to talk about personal data and you guys know about what it is. So, okay, anyway, so that is personal data. Let me ask some 2 silly questions. How much personal data have you given out since morning? Yes. Since you wake up, Let me say you woke up at 6. How much personal data have you given out? Not much. She says 2. Which one? When ordering for a border. When we are registering here. 1. Registering here. Okay. Any other? Yes. Okay. Okay. You know, what time is it? Do you realize that between when you woke up and 9 and now, your personal data is somewhere being thrown around? So when we came in at the gate, I asked the askari why they need my data. Because they needed my name. We said name is personal data. Phone contact. Location, like where I come from. And then signature. So, plus card details. Now that is how many pieces of personal data? So I asked the askari, why do you need all this personal data? Like, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of where I stay when I'm coming here for 2 hours? What's the purpose of my phone contact? So phone contact in a wrong place. I said, okay, maybe. But I don't know how many of you are like, okay, here I'm entering a hotel for a half-day meeting, but I have to leave this all personal data. And like, how safe is it? If I need to know where he stays, I just need to go and say, I forgot to register. Isn't it? Okay. So let's talk about the legalese, but me, I prefer to talk about the practical side of things. So the practical side of things is a lot of times we don't care about our personal data. We keep throwing it out anyhow until that moment when you realize it's being abused or is about to be abused. And we just need to learn to protect our personal data. Let's just learn of it from today. I have friends who use the strangest of strategies to protect personal data. Like if you insist on his phone number, he will just make 1 digit wrong. But he will never give you his other things of checking in hotels. Like why? You know, I've always asked hotels. So recently I checked in, asked them, why do you want to scan my national ID? Because my national ID, I've told you I'm Peter, and you want to see if I am the one. So I pull out my national ID, you look at it and give it back to me. Why are you keeping a record of my national ID? And where they said security for security reasons, what. Anyway, to cut the long story short, yesterday DPO issued an order against that hotel for taking my personal data. I take my personal data serious, and I fight. Okay, so we are going to look at personal data in Uganda and how these laws operate. And like I've already said, I'm going to look at it from more the practical side of view. So this issue of personal data comes from a right in the Uganda Constitution and many other international documents which I won't bore you with, which provide for a right to privacy. And it says, no person shall be subject to unlawful search of the person, home or other property of that person, or unlawful entry by others of the premises of that person. Then no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of that person's home, correspondence, communication, or other property. Basically, your personal data is your personal property. that email you have is your personal property. Law has developed so much that now there is even a right to remain anonymous. I was involved a bit in some case that had that right about, must be like 10 years back. There was someone or a group of people, we can't tell, called TVO. Remember TVO? Tom Volatile Okwalinga, yes. So, one government of Uganda had made so many requests to Facebook to reveal who TVO is because of what he or she or they were posting. But for purposes of this conversation, I knew him. But we don't know him. We don't even know if there were many people. So, against Museveni in a petition that was coming. The election that had JPAM. And so this gentleman, the lawyer, wrote to Facebook and said, please, I need the identity of this person because I want to sue. And these big companies, big tech, are funny. They just ignored him. Probably they looked at it. It's coming from Uganda, a country they don't consider much. They just ignored it. Sued in Ireland. And Facebook had no problem with the suit. So they entered a consent judgment to reveal the identity of the person. And I don't know what happened there before the judgment, before the ruling was given, which was supposed to be given a few days after. Before it was given, Facebook changes their mind and they decide not to reveal. So they go back to court, and but to do that, you needed to prove a lot of things. So they came to Uganda and affidavits to show that this person's life is in danger, so that the private life the identity of those people couldn't be revealed, which is what happened, and then court did not reveal who TVO is. But in the process, then we get to learn that there had been more than 10 letters from Uganda Communications Commission on who the person is, including letters from ISO and ESO. So literally, they needed that person so badly. And the court said, no, this person has a right to remain anonymous. And the right to remain anonymous means the right to not give your personal data. So that's how that case went, but it's one of the many things that relate to personal data. So, enforced by the Data Protection and Privacy Act, Chapter 97, and the Data Protections. Today we shall discuss more about the Act, but the regulations give the practical side of doing things. So these two laws regulate collection of data, processing and use, storage of data, and the disclosure of personal data. So disclosure of personal data. Who said you use Safe Border? You use Safe Border. So if I went to Safe Border and I need to know your data, like how does Safe Border have a policy that they can't reveal? Or for those who signed in that thing at the gate, if I walked at the gate and I say I'm a security person and I'm investigating, does this hotel have a policy not to reveal or to protect my personal data? I see a lot of violation of these things. So these are the 4 things that this law, and these 2 laws apply to persons, individuals like me and you. If you are collecting, processing, name it, personal data. It applies to government agencies You see, many government agencies don't feel like this law applies to them. But when was it? I think last week, I was back and forth with the Data Protection Office challenging the collection of personal data, my personal data, because I'm a coffee farmer. When someone shows up at my farm, he wants my name, my NIN, my phone, my email, and GPS coordinates of my farm. And I asked him, who are you? How do you need this information? He said, yeah, we are sent by government. Okay, sent by government, but. So anyway, the person probably didn't know. You see, there is this arrogancy that is not even with government officials. It's by private individuals hired by government to do government work. So he just told me, this is government work. I said, okay, go and collect it from government. It's government work. I said, okay, go and collect it from government. So, and then I wrote to the ministry. I said, I need, the ministry doesn't have it. So we might have a fight. But it's for the good of the country. It's for the good of the country because they are collecting data because the European Union requires coffee to come from plantations where they haven't cleared forests. And so the European Union requires that data. Like if they buy coffee from me, they will need to take my coordinates to certify EU conditions that this coffee comes from, I did not clear a forest, which is very good. The reason I'm challenging it is if I wrote to the European Union and I say, where another European Union law will apply, where they say we can't buy from Uganda unless you have fulfilled this. So I'm telling the ministry like, oh yes, let's first meet our own laws. And it's a shame. Like, you're the government supposed to be implementing these things, but you don't want to follow that. So that's having to do with this. So collection and processing or using personal data within Uganda, it applies to that. But it also applies with collecting of data outside Uganda. So when I was beginning, I asked us how many our organizations are registered. If you go to register your organization or to and process personal data, one of the things you'll be required to do is to sign a declaration that you are not going to send data outside Uganda. I don't know if some of you have registered. You must have signed that. Yeah, because it's a big thing. Actually, Ugandan data is like everywhere out there. About a month back, Data Protection Office ordered Alphabet. Probably we all know Alphabet. The owners of Google and all those, Google, YouTube and all that, to register and meet Ugandan law. And I can assure you if they want, they will be blocked. But knowing how those companies, because you see, you use most of their services for free. So what they sell is your data. They make money from your data. So most likely they are going to register to be able to, to continue being in business. I don't expect them to object, but if they object, it would be interesting to watch because you might wake up tomorrow and there is no Google. Have you guys imagined that life? You don't want to. Yeah, you might wake up tomorrow and there is no Google. You see, it's just like how we woke up one day and there is no Facebook. Up to now, there is supposedly no Facebook in Uganda, except what I find very, very, very funny is that we all know Uganda police. Their role is to enforce law and order. And they are like top communicators on Facebook. And I'd be like, okay. like, like, okay, this is interesting. So they will write a whole big thing, like a 2-page statement on Facebook, then go to Twitter, tweet a summary of the statement, and put a Facebook link. I'm like, okay, so they also understand that we need VPN. And they also use VPN. Because otherwise, how is Uganda police accessing this? But anyway, so data outside Uganda. Now, the biggest data outside Uganda, some of you might not realize, is no one is going to come here and sit and say, here is a form, fill it, I need your data. The biggest data outside Uganda is your behavior online. You buy a ticket, most likely that platform is being run by someone. How many of you don't care about cookies? You open a website and it says accept cookies and you accept. or do we understand the cookies? We understand the cookies. Okay. So if we understand the cookies, we understand what they do. They collect your browser activity, your online activity for those people. So when the EU put in place a law for websites, companies to seek consent before they collect information, then companies put that thing. So and it's quite vague. You see, the organizations which say accept cookies, so they give you a yes or no answer. But if you say no, you'll still access. There are those, if you say no, you can't access. It's their choice. But then there are those who don't give you a no. They give you accept our cookies. So you go to that pop-up, it only has accept. And I really don't trust those ones. But I would encourage you, just reject all the cookies. I'm on your website for 2 minutes. Why do you need my personal information? Like, why? Yes. Yeah, if I really need the information, and that makes less than 1%, because most times when I go to a website and they don't give me the option of rejecting, I just go to another website. If you checked a bit or little longer, you realize the same information is available somewhere else. Yeah, most times the same information. But I would encourage you to be rejecting the cookies, because, yeah. Pardon? But and that's why I have a problem with them. They never give you a right to revoke. I don't know if you've ever seen a right to revoke. When you accept, you use, you can't be like in the middle of using, you say, hey, I've changed my mind. So it's normally accept or reject. When you go to ads. No, that one is only for ads. I've even seen sometimes you go to download an app, now that he has talked about ads. So the app has no ads. And then like when you're about to download, those who use that other platform, which I encourage you not to use, because it's addictive. The iOS, all that system with Apple, name it. I hate it because it's addictive. So I always tell my friends, if you've not yet gone there, don't go there. Because I know sometimes people say, but why do you like Apple products? I'd be like, think after like 2-3 years of using it, you just feel like this is the thing. So anyway, so one of the things that it provides us is you can check if an app has ads. So what I find funny is the app is advertising itself like it has no ads, and then when you click to download, Apple says, has. Yeah, and you'd be like, okay, who is telling the truth between the owner and the platform where it is? But anyway, that's it. But just to be conscious of personal data, because outside Uganda, we just throw our personal data. My rule is this: if a platform is free, you are the cost. If the platform is free, like, let me say, like we Google for free, not so? So, how do you think it survives? Okay, WhatsApp is free, not so? And the other day, WhatsApp was sold at how much? When it was sold from their old owners to Meta. Some good millions, not so? Actually, it was billions, about, I don't remember, but some billions US dollars. So how do you think they make money? Like, no, not through ads, through your data. Yeah, it has no ads, but it makes money. Yes.
When it comes to WhatsApp, one of the things you do when you download it, you accept those terms and conditions. So when I was reviewing the terms and conditions sometime, one of terms is that you give them access and authority to all of the data, every message, every image, any information that is shared through the app, they have access to it and they can use it in any way they seem like they feel like.
Fit. Yes. Yeah, actually that's the term in their terms of use. I don't know if any of you have read their terms of use, or you just accept. You see, sometimes reading those terms of use is like, sometimes, I don't know how it feels. It's one of those futile things, because you feel like, okay, I can't say, remove this one. But the good thing is, you know, you know. So you make a decision when you know that they are saying everything. There's a time, I think that app has died. There used to be a Uganda police app. I forget its name. Might be those who remember its name could remind us. Now, when I tried to download the app, first of all, it wanted to access my contacts. And I was like, but now, me, I'm downloading this thing to send crime-related information. So what do you need with the contacts in my phone? That was one. Then the other thing, it needed me to, forgotten the other one. But it also had to do with my personal data. It needed my email, my some details. I said, no more. I didn't go beyond granting it access to my contacts. Because I asked myself, okay, so I be there chatting with someone and then they're like, okay, that's what you think about us. You know. Anyway, we need also to consider those. Let's look at some keywords. We've already used some of them. So data, under the law, data means information which is processed by means of equipment operating automatically in response to instructions given for that purposes. That's data. It means a record with the intention that it should be processed by means of an equipment. You know, a photograph is a record, not so? Okay. Is recorded as part of the relevant filing system or with the intention that it should be part of the relevant filing system. Filing systems, attendance register for this meeting, you know, or the other one at the gate, which I didn't understand. You see the one for this meeting. I asked the lady, okay, why do you need this? She's like, okay, we need this because we have to account to the donors. We need to show that actually, when we say 5 people attended, there are 5 people who attended. And when they call us, when they later audit us, they can choose to say, give you a call, did you attend this meeting? Say, yeah, or I don't remember. Well, yeah, okay, but that is also data. So if data doesn't fall in any of those 3, but it's part of a record you can access, it's also data. Now let me give you an example of how it works. You send out your geo maps, location maps, that's all. And sometimes you are using this system where it even shows you a small photo views. You've seen those? Small. So that small photo is really not part of your location. Me, I'm saying, come and find us here. Or this is where the hotel is. But as I'm showing you where the hotel is, it comes with my picture. So that is, it would also be considered data. So then we have the other thing which we've been talking about a lot, data controller. Who is a data controller? So it's a person who alone or jointly with others has power to determine the purpose for which data is used. So the purpose for which data is used. You see, a lot of times when data is collected, we don't collect data for the sake of collecting data. We collect data to use it, not so? Say, for example, the registration of our data for this meeting. Like I told you, when I asked the lady there on the table, she said, I'm collecting it because for accountability purposes, not so? So the data controller, CCG, has determined that we shall collect this data for accountability purposes, okay? But it also includes all those who are required by law. For example, URA. URA collects a lot of your personal data. Anyone without a TIN? There's someone without. By the way, did you know that URA can give you a TIN without your consent? Yeah, the law allows them. They can sit there and say, this person, here is your TIN number. Go and collect. URSB, they collect a lot of personal data. NGO Bureau, name it. There are quite a number of government entities. Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, I've already talked about it. Quite a number of people. Now, recently, it occurred to me that we live in a very surveilled country. Like there's a surveillance camera everywhere. I'm not talking about these ones, these 2 in this room. Maybe there's another one somewhere. You know, I was surprised when I discovered that nearly all roads in the city, there's a camera every 1 to 2 kilometers. Like every 1 to 2 kilometers, there's a camera. And I was like, wow. So that means everywhere you turn, there is someone. Yeah, someone watching. That's also private data. So a data processor is a person who, other than the employee of the controller, who processes data on behalf of the data controller. So, for example, you might hire someone to do your analysis. When I was still young, I used to do a lot of data analysis, research data, like I used to use a lot of Excel, which is very basic. SPSS. Anyone knows SPSS? Statistical Package for Social Scientists. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's a computer program. Used to use SPSS. Used to use NVivo. I wonder if it's still there. Atlas TI. You know, we used to do that, a lot of processing. Yeah, so maybe it would be data processors. I'm hired by someone and I'm using this to do it. Now, the data subject is defined there, but the data subject is you. Yeah, if we left a lot of English, which is being used to define, data subject is you. So the data subject is that person whose data is being collected or processed or stored. So it's me and you, basically. Okay. So what are the principles of data collection? Because as I was hearing in the morning, people's expectations and all that, they talked about this. So if we are collecting data, we must follow these seven rules. The first one is being accountable to the subject. We said data subject is the person who owns the data, not so? So the one who is collecting data is accountable to that person. So he's accountable. How is he accountable to you? One, he has to tell you, I'm collecting your data for this purpose. Second, he's not supposed to use data beyond the purpose for which he collected it unless he has consent from you. You get? Thirdly, if you changed your mind, that person is supposed to, let me say, if you change, we shall see the right to erasure. If you change your mind and say, please delete my data, you don't come and ask me, but why? No, I've said delete. I don't need to explain. It's just like when I was, those days I used to teach law. So one time I asked students, what happens if someone set his house on fire? And everyone was like, yeah, would call police, would arrest him, would. Like, but this is his property. So who has he offended? By setting his own. So likewise, if this is my property, data is my property, not so? And I've said, I don't want you to have it. So why are you asking me to explain? I just don't want. That's good enough. So, okay. Must collect and process data fairly and lawfully. Now, this one is where many Ugandans have problems. Collecting my data fairly and lawfully. I'll use this hotel as an example. I'm not sure they are registered for private data collection. So are they collecting it lawfully? Probably not. But they're not the only ones. Like we told you, like we demonstrated that when you woke up in the morning, between your bed and here, you kept throwing your personal data like at every turn, you know? So before you left, you logged in WhatsApp and checked, logged in your email and checked, ordered for a safe border, ordered for Uber, you know? So we kept like putting our data everywhere. And then question is whether those people we gave our data were doing it, were collecting it lawfully. Of course, we shall come to the issue of minimality. Like, you should collect only the data that is enough for what you need. You get? Only the data that is enough for what you need. And that was the reason I was asking the lady down there, why do you need my home? You get? Like, why? I will understand you need my telephone. Maybe you need to call me just in case. But why do you need where I stay? Like, what value does it add to you? So you have a duty to collect only what is relevant. I remember there are those jokes people were saying when people are collecting census. Like someone would ask, you only have 3 children? And then the man said, do you know the 4th? Do you know, do you know if there is another one? Because the question is asked like, like this is not enough. Yeah, I know they find problems if you are collecting. If you want to find problems with collecting data, I come from a culture where cows are very important things. So much so that you can collect data for people who sleep in this house without a problem, but you try to ask how many cows we own. And we will tell you, no, we don't count our cows. Please, please, you are crossing the line. If you want to know the number of cows, you are crossing the line. Ask us about how many we are, how many are male, how many are female, about our age, but don't ask about our cows. So, they always say, no, we don't count our cows. Of course, there is also the other one, where a common saying, I think it's from Central here. I'm not sure about other areas. Maybe it's from across the whole country, where they say that men don't count their children. So when you are asking, there is there you're about to cross the line on the minimum data you should collect from from a man. Okay. Collect process. Okay. Of C is already explained. Collect, process, use, or hold data relevant and not excessive, unnecessary personal data. But also there is another aspect in C, is a time aspect. Data should be collected for a purpose and destroyed after the purpose. So you don't keep my data 10 years down the road. When you collected it for, just might be a purpose that lasted 2 months. You get? Yes. Ensure quality of information collected, processed, used, and held. Yes, quality data is very key. A lot of times there isn't. A lot of times I see, even online, there's a lot of wrong data. Has anyone ever called you male when you are female? Or the reverse? That's to begin with, the wrong data that is held. Or maybe you identify yourself in a certain way, things we don't want to talk about. And, so ensure transparency and participation of the data subject in the collection. Transparency is key. Just don't throw a form in my face without telling me why you need my data. If I asked, how long are you going to hold my data? Explain. Transparency is key. Then there is observe security safeguards in respect of data. This, we can pretend that we do, but the truth is, it's quite a hard nut to crack. We all know, I think last week we were revealed that some data was leaked from Afghanistan, from the British security. It's the second time, I think, in a month. They've been keeping private data of those people. Or if you follow these things, There was a time a hacker did the unthinkable. He hacked into the National Health Services in the UK and accessed all the health data of like, I think it was more than 60 million people, like everyone, and even blocked access. And everyone was going crazy. There's a documentary on YouTube, I think, about that. Because the thing I found interesting is there happened to be this innocent individual, young person, I think he's in his 20s, who figured out how he can prevent that hacker. And he goes and prevents the hacker, but is arrested for being the hacker. The guy who came to do good. But eventually they found that he wasn't the one causing trouble. Because they thought he wants ransom, and that is the one who created the problem. But that is, security is very key, data security is very key, and data security, especially online data, it gets abused. Now, I need to pose some questions. I had people from political parties during introduction. How much private data do you keep? Yeah, lately, party card has been party card. Huh? But you know that card comes with a lot of private data. How safe is that? What systems do we have in place? Think about it. You don't need to wake up your opponent. He's not even fighting with you over votes, but is using your laxity in data protection to just throw something on you. I don't want to give guys ideas because we might live here and and the next thing you hear is the party headquarters being raided for data protection. But that's one thing you need to think about. How are we doing about in time? 10:33. Okay, let me 10:33. Let me do like a 5 minutes, then we break. You are doing working tea. Okay, I'm advised it's working tea, so you can pick quietly. Okay.
No, they'll just let them know what they're just getting them in threes, tons, and tons.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So, data protection in Uganda is under NITAU, National Information Technology Authority. Under there is a data protection office who is in charge of all this. I think it's one of the authorities that was not rationalized, that survived, okay? So, these ones have a duty to implement data protection laws. I know many of you might have never heard about them. And the action point is today, when you leave, if you collect data in your institution, please go and register before they write to you, because they do. I know, like, there's a whole police section whose duty is data protection. So what these guys do is the moment they discover you've not fulfilled requirements under data protection law, you are summoned to police to make a statement. I know a few people who try to do this as NGOs. People in the private sector really abuse the data and don't wait for those guys to write to you. Or the other way is you meet someone with lugezgez like Peter and you pick his data and he says, why are you using my data? And you say you can go to hell. And then he says, okay, let's go there together. And the next day, you are in police answering why you are collecting private data. So sometimes you need some vigilance helps, you know. Just go register. This registration is, I think it's 100,000 per year. and you are done. And why am I saying this, targeting especially the private actors? Many of you think you do not collect private data. But let's begin with basics. Many of you, if you have staff, if you have employees, you are keeping name. Remember where we began? What is private data? We said name, phone, NIN, TIN, NSSF, account detail. Yes, marital status is one of them. But like, is there an employee who doesn't have that? Like, is there an employee who does not have the names, contacts, bank account details, tax identification number, and NSSF for their staff? I don't think there is one. Unless you are doing something illegal and you don't pay your staff the right channel. So, every time I'm talking to different people, some people tell me, no, for us, we don't process private data, and so we don't qualify. And I tell them, no, it's because you've not understood what you're talking about. Because literally, everyone who does this, I find myself, even at my farm, I have this. Okay? Now, at institutional level, because at government level, we have NITAU and we have the National Data Protection Office, which has so many staff. I can't go through from the board all the way to the police, but they have all that. Now, at institutional level, every organization is supposed to register. You get? So when you register, the head of that institution is responsible for enforcing this law. So you guys who are executive directors, director, country director, you know, the many titles, it's your duty. But you are also supposed to identify a member of staff who is designated as a data protection officer. When I was beginning this presentation and I asked, only one person was able to put up his hand. So that means either in this room we don't have data protection officers, or people don't know that they are. No, I've found that seriously. Like you go to train or you go to do an internal audit, and you say, you talk to the ED, who is your data protection officer? He says, our accountant. So you go to the accountant, the data protection officer. I need this. He's like, no, I don't know those things. So, but they told me you're the data protection officer. Says, no, I'm not. Me, I'm the accountant. Of course, sometimes people think like you'll get a job as data protection officer. That's not there. What the requirement is to designate someone among your staff members to be in charge of data protection. But it shouldn't be in charge of data protection just by name, because you are supposed to be taking steps to ensure your organization is compliant with data protection laws. So you need to do that. Let me go back here. Interestingly, this applies also to government agencies. Say, for example, I know the Ministry of Health is registered for data protection. And I think one of their, what are they called? Below the permanent secretary. There's a commissioner who is the ministry's data protection officer. So if you need anything. Why is this important? If I need to withdraw my data from the ministry, that's the person to contact. If I see there's a breach of data, that's the person to contact. Unlawful processing of data, there's a time I wanted to take on the ministry because of unlawful processing of data. But I think I said, okay, let them go. You remember COVID? So the ministry was doing one of the most discriminatory issues that I've ever seen. So they would come and give us the COVID test results. We tested 100 people, 50 turned out negative, 20 are truck drivers, 5 are sex workers. It's like that saying for us who come from the southwest, where they said that these people says, in the bus we were only 2. You've heard that? Yeah, you see if you're Mhima, omwana omuntu, it's only if you're Mhima. Omuntu is only if you're Mhima. If you're not a Mhima, you're not a muntu. So the guy would tell you, we were only 2 in the bus. Because they were only 2 people. The others, we don't know. So the ministry would give results and you'd be like, okay, so when you tell us these are truck drivers and these are sex workers, are they not part of the people you tested? Like, how come you're not telling us these are lawyers, these are social workers, these are, you know? So there was some bit of abuse in that processing, but well, we let it pass. But the point here is data protection, even government agencies have to meet the same requirements. So what are your rights? We say the data subject is me and you, not so? And we have rights. Me and you have rights. So these are some of our rights. The right to be informed. Please exercise this right. When someone is collecting your data, you have a right for that person to inform you why he or she is collecting your data. And that right also includes you the right to say, this aspect of data is unnecessary for the reason you are collecting data. So we shall come to this a bit later, what the person should provide. Right to access personal data of the same subject. You have my personal data, I have a right to access it. You understand? So you have a right to access your personal data held by someone else. Like, what kind of data do you have on me? I need to know my personal data that you hold. So don't go asking me, why do you want to know? No, it's my personal data. Why I want to know, it's because it's mine. You get? So you have that right. Then you have a right to ask for rectification of data in case there are mistakes. So most common people who I've seen asking for rectification of data has been on Edge. I don't know why, but I've seen a lot of people saying, no, that's not my Edge, I'm this. I've also seen a bit on qualifications, well, for the obvious, where someone is holding maybe different qualifications, but you have just the right to ask for. Yeah. You have a right to restrict the processing of your personal data. Like, I'm giving you my data only for the purposes of this workshop. So if you want to understand, I've seen people who have sued. There was even one who sued Bank of Uganda because they had a meeting like this one and they took a photo, like a group photo, and then the bank used the photo for something else other than that workshop. And these guys were saying, the person who sued the bank was saying, no, I gave consent for the workshop. Anything beyond that is processing data beyond what I consented to. So that was the case. You can also object to processing. So you have a right to object to processing. You can choose what you can process my data on and what you can't. I'm likely to have this fight with my telecom service provider. MTN because they seem to be processing my data line. So every other unsolicited SMS I'm getting from someone else, I never gave that permission. Someone else. Me, I know where I put my data. I'm only dealing with the one I gave my data. And the one who collected it, we shall have to explain how did the other one get it. Yeah, let them first explain. And actually, I'm serious on that. I've written to about 5 entities over that because I really am. Then there is also the right to erase your data. You have a right to ask the person to erase the data. That also includes the right to be forgotten. Quite a controversial right because I've seen some people, relatives of dead people, who write and say, Meta, please remove all the data about the deceased, and Meta keeps playing games. Yeah, you have your hand up? Mm. Yes.
Delete my data. So if I consented for my photo to be out there, and then after a few years, now I don't want it to be out there. So do they still have a right to also delete that photo, or do I still have that right to demand for my photo to be deleted?
Yeah, it's your right. Like I told you, there are two things I told you. That when they are collecting data, there is time boundness. Like we are collecting your data for this period of time. So one, it could be outside the time limit for which it was collected. So you can use that. But also, these rights give you the ability to change your mind. You get? So changing your mind can be at any stage. You get? You can say, no, now I've given you enough. You've used enough of my data. Please. Yeah. There was another hand here before we go to her. Still. Now you see, if there was an annual report that was printed and circulated, then I can't come and say remove it. Because when I consented to it, it was that. But I can object to you using the same data in the next report. You get? Yeah, because that now aligns with the purpose for which the data was collected. Yeah. If the data was collected for a book, you consented to it being in the book. But if I pick the data from that book and I want to do another book, that's where you might. Yes. Yes.
My question is, how practical is that? It's one thing to say I can go and ask for my data. It's another thing for them to actually be able to give it to me. For example, if, yes, whether it is to take it back or to delete it. For example, if I went to a government institution and said, I want all my data back, would they give it back? How practical is this? Because at the end of the day, laws are meant to be, implemented, and then they're there for a purpose. But the question is, at the end of the day, if I did walk up to, say, Ministry of Internal Affairs, and I'm like, I want all my data back, would they give it to me?
So your question points to something we are coming to, the exceptions. So there is a certain kind of data you cannot wake up and say delete. For example, where data is needed by law. Like you can't walk to URA and say delete my data on the tin, or to NSSF and say I'm done, delete. You get? You can't, because the law says you can't. Of course, the law allows that data to be deleted, but the chances are that you don't qualify. The qualifications are you are leaving the country for good. Then the other qualification in case of NSSF, your age has come, you're of age, you can no longer save with them, that kind of thing. So there are exceptions. But also, even in real life, some of this data might be a bit hard to delete. That one I also acknowledge. For example, I might have put data on a tweet, but that tweet, I can delete it. But I don't have the ability to delete the data. You get? That data exists somewhere else. Just like I know for maybe the tech savvy people here can advise. Nearly every website out there is stored somewhere. So if you deleted a website, if you edited something on a website, there are tools where I can go and see how your present website looked like 10 years back. And they will reproduce it, which means they will reproduce the same data. Now you might find me, the one in charge of this website, yes, I've deleted, but using that tool, someone will get the same data. So yes, there are a bit of challenges, especially with the technology, with the practicalities. Though, one of the rights you'll see, I don't know if you have a time to discuss that, is that one of the things is that when you request for your data to be deleted, that person must show you that I have, must show you the steps they have taken to remove your data. When you request, like, let me say, any of these rights, if you request and say maybe, okay, let me say the other earlier rights, you are changing your data. You are doing correction on your data. You see? The data, my data in your database is showing that I'm a woman and I'm a man. You get? So the data processor or controller or whoever is holding it has a duty to show me the steps they have taken to rectify my data. You get? So there are those duties. Yeah. Yes.
So, thank you, Peter. You were taking us through this. I was thinking about these digital number plates by the Russian firm. And I'm asking myself the question of who has power and control then over the critical data of Ugandan citizens. Is there a breach of data sovereignty? And what are the potential implications for a foreign firm having unfettered access and control to these vast amounts of data?
Yeah. Actually, those digital number plates, I don't know. It's one of the, let me not use the word, because you guys might end up collecting bail for me, bail money for me. Yeah, it's a hoax, it's a lie. So, and our data has been given to a private firm. Of course, they hide under security, and no one is willing to listen in terms of the powers that be. Because the powers that be are so insecure that if you told them there is insecurity, they will not listen to anything else. I always joke with people that there's a time, see, the head of state sometimes, you remember during COVID, but the man fears getting sick. So he fears insecurity things, he's very, very strong. To an extent that one day he addressed the nation with this mosquito thing, and in the middle of the speech, a mosquito showed up. So he picked the thing and did like this. And I was like, oh yeah, this is... So security things, they won't listen to you. But indeed, there is a lot of data violation in that area. And maybe at one stage we'll have a chance to have same discussion on that very one in itself. Yeah.
What to the digital number plates and the fining system, the express system, penalty system. So there was no legal instrument basically establishing this whole system. That is why some vigilant Ugandans were like, we can't continue with the express penalty system, yet we don't have a data protection law in place for that particular system to show how our data is being used. Because at the end of the day, we had people, your name, your number plate, everything would be basically public to everyone. What road you are passing on and all that. So we saw that people's details were being plastered all over the internet, which is equally not safe for the people. But then for the vigilant Ugandans, the greatest question was that what is the legal instrument that is actually authorizing the use of the express penalty system? How safe is it? Because there was none in place. That is why the system was halted until there is actually another proper system. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that was halted for a month. Yeah, the month is about to. No, you see, Uganda is very interesting. Eh? Sometimes I go for meetings and the meeting is supposed to begin at 9 and I ask them, like it's 11, and then I ask them, what time is 9 o'clock? So likewise, these ones, they halted it for a month to get back to us. Someone needs to ask them, how long is the month? Because really, but anyway, that's the truth. Like what she says, a lot of gaps existed. And probably someone realized there are gaps. So, but for the number plates, well, it's there. It's going on. And we are being surveilled at every turn of the corner because that data is not in the hands of our government. That data is outside Uganda, and someone is making a kill in that data. It's that silly, but that's Uganda. Okay, so that's why I wanted us to discuss the first part. We shall discuss other things. Yes, just as I go through it, we shall discuss other things. So what I want is, how do we exercise our rights? Yeah, my thing I've seen with Ugandans, they rarely want to exercise their rights. They want someone else to do it for them. Huh? So that's why people, sometimes you be on Twitter and someone says, maybe they should sue for this. I'll be like, is it his duty? Someone comes and says, but you lawyers, why don't you do this? And I'm like, what's your role? Yeah, there's a hand here. Yes, first.
Just had one question before I closed. Like, where does the deleted data go? Like, after deleting that data, where does it go? Can someone find it there and get it back?
Where does deleted data go? Yeah, interesting question. I think it depends on the platform, the technology they are using, and how wide or far the data had gone. Because, like we said, sometimes you delete the data, but that data had already gone very far, and then yeah, so sometimes it becomes hard. I've seen rights to be forgotten, where Meta, Facebook, has been ordered to delete some data, but then they will put down like the page. But then you go to Google and images will appear. Yeah, because they had moved beyond that platform. So that's a challenge. Yes.
I think in regards to his question, there is also that aspect of the internet doesn't forget. So like you'll delete all whatever you want, but then like you'll always find that information there. And then there is also that part of the deleted data, let's say like those people who do bookkeeping, the records, maybe like let's say our transcripts and all that, our registrations for NIRA and the passports, you'll go to a chapati stall and they'll pack for you in a paper that has someone's results, and then you're like, yeah. And then I had a question in regards to data privacy, and this is more on the surveillance. We recently heard that the government is trying to procure a social media tracking tool. So I really don't know how safe we are. And then you talked about us like fighting for our rights, and of course we are in digital times and things are evolving. So I don't really know how we shall exercise our rights online if the government really wants to procure a social media tracking tool.
Okay. First, there is mismanagement of data, which is common in this country. So the reason you'll find someone's data at that chapati stall is because these people mismanaged the destruction of the data. Some of those things have to be destroyed, like the papers have to be shredded, and they never did that. Still, I'll go to where you ended. I would encourage, if you found it, you see, these laws can only be enforced if we as citizens are up to it. Like if I found someone's data really on a Sumbusa package, chances are that I'll go after the company. Because the more we go after those, the more we shall. You see, if that small company is able to violate that rule, what will government do? It will do even worse. You get? We just need to start with the basics. Now, the other question was on, forget? Oh yes, social media tracking tool. This country is quite surveilled. We don't even need the tracking tool because we already have enough. Just like I told you earlier on, just be observant when you're moving on the streets, on the roads. You'll be surprised that like within every 1 kilometer to 2 kilometers, there's a camera. So they already have like too much. I know they don't even have use for what they get, but they get it there. So, and normally they hide behind security. The truth is sometimes we can do little, especially when they use security as an excuse. An example of the number plates. There's little we can do because they are using security and no one is willing to listen. But the more we talk about them, the more we push and show that this is not right, the more things happen. I happen to have been a victim, I suspect. I don't have evidence. A victim of Pegasus hacking some years back. So basically I woke up and my systems couldn't work. My laptop couldn't work and my phone couldn't. So I could switch on the phone, it brings a black screen. And then it later brought a message on the black screen that I have to update. So I thought it might be an update. So I updated because the phone, I couldn't go anywhere beyond that screen. So I updated. And after updating it, then I accessed my emails. There was an email from the manufacturers which was saying, we suspect your phone has been compromised. Your phone and your laptop has been compromised. I found it strange, but the email said, we are giving you a temporary operating system and we shall give you another operating system. So I installed the operating system on my laptop and on my phone. Then to check in office, 2 other people had faced the same. So we thought maybe there is a virus, maybe there's something. Then a week later, we got information that either Uganda or Rwanda hacked into US embassy staff systems, and what the company did was everyone they suspected could be potentially hacked, they just erased the whole operating system we had and just gave us a new operating system. I can tell you, it's that kind of thing that makes you wonder, should I be sending WhatsApp messages? Should I be picking calls? Because like you are like, oh, so they know all about me. And they may not even know. But just the discomfort, yeah, that someone accessed all your data in the phone and in your laptop. Yeah? And the one who accessed, they're telling you it's either government of Uganda or government of Rwanda. You don't need to have done anything wrong just to know that someone has. It's just like if you were in your bedroom, probably you can be in your bedroom naked, the way you were born. But just a feel that someone is peeping, you know? It just gets you uneasy. It's that person might not be doing any harm, you get? But just the feel that, you know, it's happening, yeah. So that has happened before. In other words, we just need to learn to live with it, take a few basic steps to prevent yourself from all your data being everywhere. You guys who want free money, those links, quite a number of phishing links. If you notice, they increase with elections. So, yeah, they increase with elections, they increase with particular campaigns. Like when there was the anti-gay law, those things were quite everywhere. So they keep increasing, and then there's a time when totally there is peace. I think there has been peace for like some 2-3 months back, after everyone discovers that UNICEF free money is not free money. Now they are sending, I saw, I think about a week back, I saw one where the president was giving free money to youth. And yeah, so like I told you, if that thing is not asking you to pay, you are the cost. Your data is the cost. That free thing you see, you click it, your data is the cost. They are phishing your data as you click it, yes.
Yeah, I have a theory about data, which I want to know if we can agree to it. That generally your data is not for you to keep or to hide to yourself. Your duty is to control who gets your data. And under normal circumstances, like government should be having goodwill towards you. It is responsible for your security, your well-being. Like it should be able to access your data, and but you should be responsible for which data you give out and who you give it to. The more data you hide, you put yourself also at risk, because the thieves who steal data will access it in any way possible. But the ones who have goodwill towards you will wait for you to give to them. So if you have hidden, for example, there's no social media handle with your name, and you're a popular person, someone else will open in your name and will be popular around, and people who love you think that's the person. So it's also important that you also control who gets, be aware that you're controlling who gets your data, but not just hiding and you never want to give out your information. So it's also something that you should think about. It's not your data to hide. For example, you have a phone number, but that phone number, we're not sure who owns it. Is it MTN which gave it to you, or you who took it from MTN? So it is either way. MTN may have a right to that number, and you also have a right to that number. But now in this case, you have a partnership with MTN over that number, and how they use it, you agree with MTN and what they should do. You have a NIN number, but it is given to you by government. Even your name, you didn't get it yourself. Your parents gave it to you. So you have data, but it's not for you alone. Your duty is to control who gets it, who takes it, and if you hide it from your duty, you try to hide it as much as possible. The thieves, the ones who want to steal your data, will eventually steal it anyway, and get you when nobody can. The ones who would want to protect you cannot, because they don't know you.
I totally agree. Like, we are in a world where you can't hide data. That one we need to accept. You can't hide data. You can only control, also to a certain extent, how your data is used. And also you talk about something, there's something interesting that sometimes data is put out to prevent abuse of data. Yeah, that's also one of the strategies, where people put out their data so as to prevent abuse of their data. For example, like you talk about opening a Twitter page, you know. So some people will open a Twitter page to prevent others using the same name. So we might know that this Twitter handle belongs to so and so. So all the others you open, we won't believe them because we know the right one. Okay? So this one has put the data out as a way to prevent some kind of abuse. As you know, we are in some sort of data. You know, we had the Industrial Revolution. So now we are into some sort of data revolution. And now with AI, there's a lot of data. The other day, I typed in AI, and the Google AI said, my law firm is not a recognized law firm in Uganda. And I was like, wow. Yeah. So now, when we go to AI and data, that's where things become quite complicated. And it becomes quite complicated in two ways. There is a whole movement, by the way, I encourage all of you in this room to pick interest in AI and how it's going to affect you. So there is a whole movement that is trying to make AI copy humans, including the bad side of humans. For example, lying. So there's a whole, like they want to train AI to be able to lie. Now when we are, yeah, it does. And now when we are talking data, that is some sort of data abuse, especially if you are relying on AI. Now, but we can't do away with AI. And chances are that we can't stop AI from lying. Because there's a whole movement who their focus is that. I've seen people who have been putting up websites, because the AI we are using right now is quite rudimentary. The Grook and Meta AI and the other one is what? They are quite rudimentary. They rely on what is publicly available. So what some people have done, they go and write articles on something, and then AI picks that as the right thing. And what happens is, because some people trust AI, when AI says this is not a legally recognized law firm in Uganda, it says, okay, no business. Again. So some people are training it to lie, but it can only lie by using data. And it's an abuse of data. It's something we may not control, but something we need to be aware of, and something we need to build our capacity into. Yes. She had a question. Pardon? Yeah, okay. Oh, let me raise this.
Thank you so much. So my question is, how is it possible that someone can actually hack, I don't know whether it's hacking, but track your phone, yet in actual sense, legally, for someone to track your phone, you're supposed to be a criminal or investigations are in place that, for example, maybe you have been accused of a certain crime, and so maybe they've gone to police, and then police is allowed to track your phone to do investigations. But how possible is it that someone can actually track your phone? I was at a certain workplace, and I was told that my phone was being hacked, and later on realized that it was actually true. So I want to understand how possible that could be, because like I mentioned, you're supposed to be granted access by the police to investigate someone for cases where maybe they're suspected to be a criminal. Thank you.
Okay. So there is, let me answer your question from a bit behind. So we have the data protection law, and I'll give you a small session on other laws that this data protection works into. And some of those laws are actually contrary to what the data protection law is saying. So one of the laws which we have is the Access to Information Law, which says you have a right of access to information held in hands of government, which means some data can be accessed. You get? Of course, the Access to Information Act gives every citizen a right to access information held by government. It has exceptions. The exceptions are if it's personal data, if it's for business, security, blah, blah, blah. So it has some exception. But in general, it allows someone else to access information. So someone can argue that it is against data protection. Or if you are giving out this information using the Access to Information Law, you must have in mind requirements of data protection law. The other two laws which are quite problematic is the Anti-Terrorism Act, which allows security agencies to do surveillance on phones even. So that's one of the things they use. And the other one is the Interception of Communications Act. Just like its name, it's meant to help intercept communications. And what they do, when you look at that act and its regulations, is that all I need is to swear an affidavit and go before a magistrate and say, we are investigating this and this case. And the magistrate will give me an order which I will take to the phone company and then print out everything. That's how phones are surveilled. So police, what I've seen, and it has been abused really. It's a system that has been abused. Unfortunately, I was part of those who challenged that law some years back, but we lost the case on technicalities. And it's something that I would encourage other Ugandans to challenge, because that law is such that as we are seated in here, someone can walk to a policeman and says, I want to look into her phone. So the policeman, I will make a statement. That's what police needs. What do I need to do in police? What's your name? Claire. So I'll go and say, Claire is, we work with Claire. We suspect she's been getting money from mobile money. We are investigating. Just make a statement. The police will attach that statement, make an affidavit, take to the magistrate. The magistrate won't even look into it. Will just stamp and take the order to whichever phone service provider. And the next day, I have a printout of all the phones she has made in the last, I don't know how many months, all the mobile money transactions she has made using her phone, like It's as simple as that.
What about listening in?
So now, listening in, our law,
To phone calls, yes.
yeah, our law doesn't allow, the interception of communication allows listening in, but it requires a technology. That law has a problem, is it puts a requirement on service providers to enable the security to listen in. So the last I engaged with them, they said we don't have the technology because it's encrypted, which I think was a lie. Which was a lie. But it's more like this. Okay, you are asking too many questions, but let me just give you an answer so you can go. So, yeah, but the law allows that. So it even requires the service providers to install that technology that would enable the security to listen in. So it's that bad.
So as you answer my question, I have been generating more questions from what you are saying. So the question is, if I am suspecting that my phone is actually being tracked, if I'm suspecting that my phone is actually being tracked, someone is listening into my conversations, what am I supposed to do? Do I go to police as well? Or do I go to MTN? What do I do? Because for me, by law, I expect that you actually, they are criminals because I didn't grant them access. I don't know that they're actually doing it. They are criminals. What am I supposed to do?
That's a hard one. Ideally, you should be going to police. But it's this kind of thing like the guy has slapped you and you report him to himself. Huh? Like, I'm here to report you that yesterday you slapped me. So it's quite hard. Huh? Like there is no clear way. Now, it would have been easy if you can get the evidence and maybe take it to the police or to the court so that it can give an order and that is stopped. But the practical side is they will tap your things and the best you'll have is a suspicion. You will not have this. Might be, let me say this, if it's a box. Might be, let me say this, if it's a box. And you can get it, even you. I don't want to teach you bad manners. But I've forgotten the term, the technical term. But what they do is, I'll set it here, it creates a fake tower, and then the genuine tower. So when you call, when she calls, her connection goes through my fake, then to the genuine. So she will call and talk to you. But me, I will tap in there. And some of them are as cheap, like you can't believe how cheap they are, but let me not teach you guys bad manners. Because you might end up having those things. You might just do like a search on your phone, like fake towers, like the cost. I've forgotten the technical word. It's WS something. Forgotten there. But they are that bad. Yeah, his hand was up before, so let's have him then you.
Thank you. Actually, I need to appreciate her. She has really posed questions that I had similar interest in. But looking at the data protection law itself, that is part 4. 22 states how police and security bodies can access your data. I'm into politics, and we had a crisis in June this year where the prosecution wanted forcefully Dr. Kizza Besigye's phones to be assessed because they have failed to link any data via the available means. And it has become a common habit where I saw yesterday in the Daily Monitor government defending use of spy machines. But the intention of forcefully, because you failed to get data through the available means in the law of wanting someone's gadget. For example, you say you're going to take my phone and use it as a gadget. I want to know from you, as someone who has been in this space and educated us a lot about our rights, about data. Is there a specific law that goes beyond the data itself but permits government to access your gadget forcefully or legally to make a track or a follow-up if it is interested in a case in you?
Yeah, the Interception of Communications Act allows most of that. But I want to say, and here I may annoy someone, but let me be like what we are. So in my school where I was, we were taught that if you are going to say something that annoys someone, say it. And if the person is annoyed, apologize, provided he has heard what you are saying. So now, let me say it. We have no government. Because, you see, these laws exist in other countries. The difference between us and them, the governments work for the citizens. They prevent abuse of these systems, you get. So, for example, the Interception of Communications Act was made to fight terrorism, you get. So, there's no Ugandan who wouldn't love terrorism to be fought, because we all want peace, you get. But then, we go for terrorists and start looking for every peace-loving Ugandan just because maybe he said something we don't agree to, you get. So it's our problem as Uganda has been we abuse the systems and no one will hold them to account. That is where the challenge is.
Thank you so much. Just thinking aloud, whether there is a clause when it comes to surveillance of my personal information that in case security has gotten it and it has been misused, is there a clause for me that I can act? Probably, I'm not looking at the agents this time, probably the officer in particular who has, because you realize that in most cases when you go to police, you're dealing with an individual. So it's this individual who goes to the system, accesses the information for you, and what you are talking about, the court, the what, I've not seen those processes when they are giving us this information, because several times I've accessed information, but I've not seen those processes of going to court, swearing the affidavit is something new to me. So in case my information has been released in such a way, because at one point, a printout came with just a phone call. One time, of course, this was a criminal, but still it was just a phone call. And somebody was struck, and I think like in 20 minutes was got. But my concern right now, this one happens to somebody who probably a criminal who is being investigated, but it can even happen to someone who is innocent. And the processes are not followed. Do we have a clause inside there?
For such things. And I encourage it. So the law is not specific, like you can go after him or her, but it's something I encourage Ugandans to try. Me, there's a time a DPC in one day beat up some journalists, and we decided to sue him in his personal capacity. And it was interesting because no one had ever sued a DPC and they were all acting like they're above the law. So when we sued him, he arrested the people we had sued, took them to LDC court and charged them. We said, okay, now we are going to, basically we went all the way. In the attempt to protect him, that was Kaihora's time. So in the attempt to protect him, they transferred him to Koboko. And I remember I was talking to the late Kawes. I told him, Koboko is still Uganda. We shall still get him. So basically we did one small thing. We went to High Court, filed a case in High Court in Kampala, and so it meant he has to be moving from Koboko to Kampala to come and appear. He wrote to the Attorney General. The Attorney General said, no, you did that in your personal capacity. So we went all the way. But by the time we are done, we had attached the only property he had, which was a Mark II, a Toyota Mark II, to sell it and recover cameras for the journalists. And that's when I think sense came back to his head. Of course, he had suffered. He had gotten some sense. But at that time, then he involved some bishop because one of the people suing was praying from that church. So we sat with the bishop, and I told the bishop, you see, sense needs to return to this country. So I agree with you. And that's a strategy I would take. If I just learn that you've abused my data, I just ignore the other people. I just go after you. And I've done this, not in data protection, but right now I have a company I've sued for trespassing on my land because they were doing a power line and assured me that it's government. I have another case which I succeeded. We went all the way to Supreme Court. Still, they came, put a road through part of my land, and I tried to talk sense to them. They told me, no, this is government. I told them, okay, let's tussle it out. So I think the bigger problem, and as citizens, one of the things we need to do is also to be challenging these people who are abusing power in their personal capacities. So the Human Rights Enforcement Act could be one of those things you use because, you see, there's a right to privacy. So me, I will ignore the data protection law and go with the Human Rights Enforcement Act, and they say you violated my right to privacy, and I go about it individually. Of course, many people fear going about the individuals, but there's also, the more we don't challenge these things, the more we normalize them. And then, you know, everyone, you talked about VSJ. You see, we've normalized denying people bail. It's like bail no longer exists on our law books. And you'd be like, maybe we need to be challenging it. Actually, there's a time I thought maybe we should do a name and shame, but let me leave it because I want to go that side. But some of these people need a name and shame. Yes. The other day I was in court. The magistrate refused someone bail because he said the sureties were poor and he wasn't sure they would pay the bail fees. I want to name and shame that magistrate because I was like, okay, does he mean poor people cannot access justice in this country? If all my friends are poor, am I not supposed to access justice? And you see, that's how we are normalizing things. That's how now you are going to wake up one day and someone says, I'm granting bail, pay 100 million. And that judicial officer knows very well you cannot afford 100 million. So is hiding beyond the bail fees to deny you bail. And we sort of normalize. We need to really take action at individual level on some of these things. I belong to the radical new bar, and I've challenged a few things. Yeah, okay, sorry. I keep walking. Yeah, but there was a question here. So there was a question here. That's why the microphone was here. No, here. Okay. So,
the devices that you're talking about. It's called the IMSI catchers or
Yes.
stingrays.
Yes.
Yeah.
IMS catch.
And there's one thing that caught my eye when I was reading about it. It can force phones to downgrade to older, less secure network protocols like 2G. So there are certain buildings that have entered, and like every single time that you enter, your network drops. So I don't know if there's like a law around that or something to prevent a whole institution from doing that to every single human being that walks into.
there is no law around it. Just like I told you, I don't want to go into that technology, but now that you've read it, you can read more about it. It's such a cheap technology. How much are they?
I think that you can build one with $20.
You've heard. At $20. So I find it, so yes, this side we have a lot on data protection, but the technologies which are existing for abuse of our data are so many, so cheap, so available that anyone interested can do that. But let's not give up, because much as the technologies are there, we also need to take steps to make sure that those technologies don't catch us. By maybe taking a few steps, I know now the technology you talk about, which can restrict phones networked only 2G, is actually meant to be a data protection technology. Like where I'd be here like, okay, today we are going to discuss data protection. I don't need any of you on WhatsApp or Twitter. So I will just plug in my thing, and every one of you will be complaining, but today's network is very poor. And but when you step out of a certain range, things will work.
Once again, my name is Benon. My take is on government institutions and how they manage data. You go to Mulago Hospital, private wing, for example, where you expect, since you're paying a certain amount of money, you expect that your data is preserved for a future visit. For example, you pay a consultation fee, then they allocate you a card and a number. So you as a patient, you expect that they would feed it into the system. So next time when you come, assuming you've forgotten your card, or maybe it was in the bag and the bag was maybe stolen, you'd imagine you don't have to go with that card. You'd imagine you just go there because they take your NIN number, your biodata. So you'd expect that, why would I need a card? Anyway, they should be having me in the system. So when you reach there, they say, go back home, or wherever you're coming from. Imagine you're coming from Mbarara, you've come to Mulago, then someone is telling you to go, but you said I gave you my data. Okay, if somehow you get the card and you give it to them, they said, hey, actually, yes, you are here, yeah, we have. Meaning, they had the data. So you ask yourself, are they just refusing to, to access the data? Are they just making me work? Second, we go to the law. I mean to the judiciary and so on. In the 21st century up to now, you still go to a police station, you find files are piled up with dust. They still have this method of writing in the book, so on. You find a counsel, the only way you can identify a lawyer is by seeing him holding a yellow file or a blue file, walking up and down the steps of High Court and these other courts. You ask yourself, why are we still having a system of files, people saying the case has disappeared, the file has disappeared? Why is it that we cannot have an electronic file where data can be extracted efficiently, other than saying, please look for the file, then they have to, So, is it a problem of simply mismanagement, or is it maybe we don't have enough money to digitize these processes? What could be the problem? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the problem is obvious. We have two problems with data. One is where we are still stuck in the old, like the case you give from Lago, but also you notice hoarding data is a business. Data is a business. So in this country, people hoard data to earn, including your own data. So in that case where you go and then someone says this file is lost, and then you cough something, then the data shows up. It's a business. It's an abuse of system, but it's also a business. And I just wanted to say two other things. We are stuck between being digital and being manual. I see this a lot of times with the URSB. So they tell you, we have a digital platform. You load something with a digital signature and they tell you, no, print this, sign it with a pen, scan, and upload. And I'm like, I thought you said it's digital. You get? Huh? So we are, I don't know, we are stuck between, you know, if you want to find how strange it is, try URSB, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, to file, let me say, a resolution. Assuming someone is in US, one of the signatories, another is in Kenya, and another is in Uganda, they will tell you, send by post to the one in whichever country he signs and sends it back to you, then you scan and upload. And you're like, in this digital system, and they call their system digital. That's what I find funny, yeah. So let's do this. There's a microphone there, and then we have two here. So let's have her, then we shall have the two this side.
I just want to clarify, earlier today when we began the session, some of the things we mentioned as personal data was academic documents. And recently I saw a video on TikTok of a brilliant man who created an app in collaboration with UNEB. And in that app, if I download the app on my phone, I will just search Mulungi Sanyu, and all my academic documents will be out there. So yes, it is a good thing for organizations and work systems, but where does that leave what we call personal data? Because that is something that we mentioned as personal data to ourselves. So does that mean the fact that our information is known by the government, or government has access to our academic documents, we cannot claim them, or anyone else is free to find them out? So I just wanted to know, do academic documents still qualify to be personal data, or it is now public information?
Yes, academic documents are personal data. And one of the things we wanted to talk about today, and the reason CCG invited this mix of people, is there some of you who develop apps, who develop systems where you're using data. And the example you give, what is needed is to put in place data protection mechanisms in that app. You get? Say, for example, you might need to have mechanisms which ensure that the person looking for that academic information is the right person. Let me say, if I'm looking for my own academic information, it's okay, I can use the platform and get it, right? Or if some other person is authorized by law to do it, it's okay. The problem comes where it's open and anyone, anywhere, can access. So one of the things we wanted to discuss in this meeting is that as you put in place systems, just have in mind the need to protect personal data, not to abuse the personal data. We are not saying don't do anything. Go out, do whatever you're doing, but make sure there are mechanisms where personal data cannot be abused. In case someone needs to access personal data, let it be either with consent of the person whose data is being accessed, or according to the law, because there are many levels with data where the law will allow. For example, if I want to know who owns a certain company, you get? There might be some personal data there, but I have to go to URSB, do a search, and even URSB doesn't allow me to just like throw it as I wish, you get? So there are those mechanisms. This one has been on for a long time, and Sarah, so maybe we could Yes, we could come to you, but let's first have this.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Mine was an addition to the forms of data breaches that are equally happening outside the law, where we don't have, where people are basically taking your data even without realizing. We talked about the tower, but then also any gadget right now that has a camera has the ability to be hacked and your information can be taken. Those of you with cameras in your home, baby monitors, all of those, someone can use those systems, the Wi-Fi systems, to collect any form of data that you are having, besides the links that we've been told about, not to just click any links. But then there are those other forms in which our data is basically being collected without our knowledge. The recent example I could give are the Roombas. You know how people have vacuum cleaners, the ones which move on their own, the AI empowered ones, powered ones rather. Roomba is now being sued because it took photos of the lady. She was in her bathroom and it was hacked. So this lady finds out that photos of her are on the internet when she's in the bathroom. But it is just that little vacuum cleaner that moves around the house, cleaning the Roomba, yes. So it took photos of her in the bathroom. And then she found her photos on the internet. So this is how equally you're being surveilled, but then also your data of how you go about your today business is being taken on. But then the most recent example when it comes to governments basically using security as a measure to have access to our data. The most recent one I could give you, the UK. You know how Apple has the end-to-end encryption. Now in the UK, the government gave an order to Apple to remove the end-to-end encryption so that they can have access to data that is stored within the iCloud. So all of us, we've been moving towards cloud computing, right? This is the biggest technology. This is now yes, it is safer. This is the future. But now we are having governments like the UK that are saying, no, I need access to that particular information. And this is a government order. And already Apple has already implemented. At the end of the day, they need the money. They need to stay in business. So basically, that is what is happening. Yes. And we've had parties like the Internet Society that are suing the UK government under public interest to ensure that such an order is not actually to have the order revoked because it goes against the principles of a free and open internet. So we've had parties like those who are now challenging the order by the UK government. But still at the same time, the same government is undergoing, they're in the process of having a digital identity system where all the information is synced into, let's say personal information is synced into one yes, central database. But then the challenges that come with that, let's say, okay, maybe for them they have the systems, the data protection systems or cybersecurity systems to support that kind of advancement. But if we, Uganda, because I've seen Uganda is equally trying to do something similar, where they are saying, let's get our national ID numbers to be the tax ID numbers and to be the same numbers. Okay, this debate has been going around, more so for Uganda, that our NINs should be our ID numbers, our social security number. So for me, I was just saying, okay, if we are equally looking at that, and yet we do not yet have the measures, the data protection, the cybersecurity measures in place to ensure that our data is actually safe, then why are we even thinking about that? Why are we thinking of using the NINs as tax identification, as everything? So for me, these are some of the developments that are actually that are tickling my mind, that we are all looking to the European Union, we are looking to the UK with their advanced systems when it comes to data protection, but at the same time, they're the same people also turning around and saying, no, we need some of these measures down. Apple, stop the end-to-end encryption. I need to have access to the information within the iCloud. So this happened this year in February 2025, the beginning of this year. So that is what happened to Apple right now. And again, we know that, of course, for China, it's known, right? And their newest advancement in technology is more of them training AI to be able to capture features for black people. You understand? Okay, given the fact that for them, their population, they are all white and all that. But then the greatest or current advancement when it comes to capturing data is that they've been training their AI on features for black people. You know, there are few black people in China, right? So they're trying to ensure that everywhere your personal data can be collected. That is in terms of facial recognition. When you're down the streets walking in China, the camera can tell, oh, this is a black person, right? Our features are not the same as the ones of a Chinese person. So for China, in as much as it's known that they surveil for them when it comes to data protection, yes, they do have the mechanisms in place to protect their data, but then at the same time, the government has the power to collect personal data, to surveil anything that you even search on the internet. For them, that is how advanced their systems are. So for Uganda, as we look to such superpowers, I don't know, for whichever steps that we want to take, for me, I feel that it would be nice for us to have in place proper data protection and cybersecurity mechanisms. Short of that, we shouldn't even be linking data from various sectors, because already we don't have those various mechanisms. So for me, that was it. When it came to URSB, by the way, we have a UG Pass. It's an authentication app that verifies signatures. So in the meeting which we had with NITAU, and they were talking about this UG Pass, by the way, it's a creation of, it's an innovation from the government of Uganda, and we're asking them, so if we have the UG Pass, why aren't we using it to authenticate our signatures as we submit to URSB? So their response was like, oh, the conversations around such are quite complicated, and this came as a result of, they were citing issues to do with cybersecurity, because this is an app that is run by government. It just verifies your signatures. So who is in control of that app? At the end of the day, how is your signature safe? Because now yes, it can be abused. So it was actually on issues to do with cybersecurity that they were advancing for not yet rolling it out or integrating it into other government systems. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe I know she raised many critical issues and would have wanted to respond. But quickly on the UK, yes, the UK did issue the technical capability notes under the Investigatory Powers Act, ordering Apple to provide that backdoor access to the ADP. Apple just disabled ADP for new users. There is still protection for the old users, the standard protection, and they challenged the order of the UK government, and the case is still ongoing. I will be shocked because Apple blocked US from this backdoor access, including for terrorists. And they said that is their protection for their users. The government should find other ways of doing their investigation without disabling the protection measures of Apple. So I would be shocked if they gave in
to the UK government without really, without thinking twice. And it will be good, you know, for people like you who are so much informed to keep us updated on that UK legal challenge. Peter, when you were talking about the Facebook and the right to be forgotten, I think we need to balance with rights of users. Facebook did, I think more than 10 years ago, create a provision for people like to write your will on who is in charge of your Facebook account. And you put in a name of a person who can access your account after your demise. That person will have full authority to either close or continue your account for the case of public figures. When you see their accounts are still, Margaret Thatcher, whoever, their accounts are still running, Nelson Mandela. So we need to also know that rights come with responsibilities. Like the usual fundamental rights and freedoms. What are your responsibilities as a person? If a platform like Meta has created that provision, are people aware? And if you are aware, can you sign in, at least put 1 or 2 siblings in charge of your account? So that if your right is to be forgotten, they can close your account. If your right is to continue and they keep sharing memories of what you had with them and quotes like we see for Princess Diana and others, then they are able to run their account. The same, Peter, the balance of other rights comes in with the owners of buildings. If I could actually afford, I would get this equipment that once you are in my premises, I disable your gadgets. Because the threats of digital surveillance are real. So if I had capacity, I would have this equipment at home, I would have this equipment at office, so that when you are coming to see me for 1 or 2 hours, you will use your gadgets after we are done. Because I'm also protecting myself from hackers. So where do we have this balance of rights, Peter? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll begin with Sarah. Allow me to sit. Been a bit standing. So, you see, the systems were made for specifically that, to protect you from particular surveillance. So that's why, and there are many. There are even those ones which detect cameras. There are, I know that like there's an app for cameras. So you just install in your phone, and like I can come here and just like scan. It will tell me how many cameras are in here. It's not as effective as the, forget the other tool. There's another tool which is specific to apps. There are quite many. There's technology to jam drone signals. For example, like over your house, like you can jam the signals, you can't fly a drone over. Most of those technologies are meant to counter the surveillance. But what happens is each side develops, you know? Each side keeps developing. This one develops the other one, this one develops one to counter it, and the other one develops this one which can't be counted. I was seeing the war in Ukraine. There was a time, I think, somewhere like mid last year, the most lethal tool in that war were these small drones we use for cameras, for photography. The usual drones you can buy. You can buy at like, let me say, $1,000. Those drones have been like the most lethal tools for the war. Why? Someone loads whatever ammunition, flies the drone over, and blasts it off. It has been cheap, it has been effective. But do you know what they did? The other side has come up with a drone jamming technology. Yep. If I could sit in the middle. Okay. Okay, so someone came up with a drone jamming technology, which they are now using. On top of that, I've seen another strange technology which hacks the drone and then take over control. Like you are flying a camera over my house, so I take over control and fly it to where I want. Like you the operator loses control. Well, those technologies are there. And some of them are meant to help in this. Some of them it's both sides. So we need to be aware of that. We also need to be, I really appreciate like what Apple has been doing in terms of data protection. And I can see they are not taking this UK order lying down, which I wish other tech firms could do. Not many of them do it. You remember my warning? I told you the problem with the Apple is they do small things which make you love them and get addicted, and then and then you'll never leave. You start paying expensive things. But yeah, there is let me tell you, as an Apple user, the day I got an email from Apple telling me that my phone and my laptop, security from either Uganda government or Rwandan government had attempted to access them. Just the fact that they sent me an email just made me feel important. Like I was like, oh, so this service provider cares about me. You know that feel, eh? Like, so they care about me. They can give me another operating system so I can run away from the one which it might not have even been true that my phones were being hacked into. But you know the feel-good thing you feel, eh? Like, now I've known you. I've beaten your system. Eh? So that's it. Hopefully others can do it. Unfortunately, not many tech companies can do it. The other unfortunate bit is we are just too small a market to cause impact. And to me, because we are too small a market to cause impact, what I do is data safety, data protection is a personal initiative. When we were beginning this conversation, we saw how much data we had put out there. And then I asked the question, did you care to know what the person is going to use the data? Now, eventually you'll have some people you trust and those you don't. I know there are people who don't trust Safe Border. They uninstalled the apps. And there are people who trust it, have their apps. There are those who don't trust Uber, they uninstalled the apps. And there are people who use Uber on a daily. So at the end of the day, personal data safety is going to be a personal decision. Then there is government. So whereas like the UK government, the US government might have some systems to prevent abuse, our governments really don't care. They don't care even whether abuse is happening or not. So your data is not, it will be just there with them. We cannot live without giving government data. It's not possible. Because you can't live without a national ID, you can't live without a passport, you must give them personal data. What you need is how much you throw it around. Like I told you, every time I go to hotels and they want to scan my ID, I ask difficult questions because I'm not going to be throwing away my information just because you're a hotel. You get? So we need to develop that culture. Like, so when you check in a hotel, and the hotel wants to scan your national ID, do you ask them questions? Why are you scanning my national ID? What are you going to use it for? Are you going to process this data beyond? You get? Because this is so personal, like they even know you slept here, you spent so many days, you ate this, you spent so much. Like, it's as personal as that AI. You get? It's so I always ask. Just now, she gives the example of the machines. Just like I said, AI is going to be good and bad. And I told you the abuse of the AI systems. One person who has now turned into being a bit of traditional, I don't see why I should have a smart fridge that should be reminding me when I should be taking my medicine. You get? I really don't see why the fridge should be telling me when to swallow my medicine when I don't keep the medicine in the fridge. Yeah, because the smart TV has all those options about my health. And sometimes I'd be like, okay, should I put my health in this thing? Who else is using it? I don't see why my phone should know where I'm jogging and when. I know people love to just set up the thing and you go jogging around, and then some people are not even conscious, so you'll take a screenshot and post, today walked 5 kilometers. Yeah, it gives you a feel-good thing. But some of us ask ourselves, okay, must my phone, if I'm going to take a walk, must my phone know? Like, must so-and-so know that I walked through Chiwatule to Ntinda in 5 hours? So, but that is me. It's my personal thing. But then if you are conscious about your personal data, now let me say, people who are politically active, if you are going to be posting your jogging information, it's innocent, but it's good for surveillance. You don't even need to post it. You just need to go to your phone, activate the app, and then you start jogging. Then a certain Peter finds a way to hack into that data, and then you get. So there are those things I feel I've not been convinced that I need a smart vacuum cleaner. I feel, no, it's not necessary. You get. So I don't feel like I need a smart TV, a smart fridge, because to me, fridge is for cooling my things. It's not for telling me when to go jogging, or or what food to eat, or even what food has run out of stock, because you know, I always decide how many tomatoes I should put in the fridge. So it shouldn't be to the fridge to. So we may need to, the point here is we may need to decide how much personal data we are feeding into these systems. Because they are data hungry, by the way. They are designed to be data hungry. Because at the end of the day, it's this grocery, you reach a point where the grocery is telling your TV that you are running out, is telling your fridge that you are running out of vegetables, so that the grocery person can sell more. You get. So me, I'm sorry, I've not yet reached that level. Maybe I'm still conservative. I feel fridge is for cooling things. If I need to know, do I have enough food? I open the door. I don't need to sit in my laptop and on my phone and. No, you see how it works? How it works is like right now, I just pick my phone, and check, do I still have enough in my fridge? The fridge is at home. So I check it from here. Then I say, oh yeah, I need this. Me, I feel, no. But at the end of the day, personal data protection begins with you. The more you're conscious about your personal data, the more you'll have it secure. The more you're not conscious about it, the more it will go out. Now, the platform, the environment we are living in is so hungry for your personal data. You get? It's so hungry for your whether it's a website you are checking which is asking you to accept cookies, it's the border you are ordering which wants to know your location, and it's the food you are ordering, the food delivery guy, who, because I've tried to use those guys, and sometimes they reach a point where they start telling you your favorite food, which you normally order every Wednesday. You've seen it, eh? And to me, I was like, but this is Kamanyiro. So how do you start telling me that every Wednesday I order for pizza? So now you are giving me an offer. So you see how much personal data you've thrown out there. So those delivery guys tell you, but you normally order for pizza on Tuesday. So this Tuesday, we are giving you an offer, 50% free. Then you jump into it and enrich their data. Yeah, so that's how I think we need to do. Now, I want to pause here. There are like some 4 slides I wanted to share. Just about 4 slides, then we can continue towards winding up. I'm glad when I was coming, when he called me, I kept asking him so many questions because I felt data protection might be something that maybe people are not interested in. But so I feared coming to talk to a disinterested audience. And yes.
Also creating, they are making us urge us to give us them their data, our data, willingly. They will create an app, you also need to use it, but the only way to use it is to put in your data. Secondly, most of us work with organizations. We have been subscribed to insurance companies where we're giving all our biodata. This year you subscribe to UAP, next year Jubilee. And we are not cognizant of the fact that it's supposed to be kept for 1 year. Ask maybe our EDs or the data protection officers to these insurance companies to delete that. There is that bit of laxity among us as Ugandans, knowing that in case something comes up, CCG is there, Peter is there, they will battle. And this fear of the Western judicial system that it is timely, costly, we fear all that. But we need to also understand public interest litigation, that maybe if you're litigating within the interest of the public, you will not be charged, blah, blah, blah. Secondly, us here, we've learned 1 or 2 things about data protection, privacy, regulations, etc. But there also needs to be a trickle-down effect. Most of our grassroots HRDs are ignorant about these things. And the fact that funding has dwindled ever since you said closed, whichever link comes that has funding, opportunity, blah, blah, we just click. We just click. When they say, have you read this document and you consent, we don't read. You just tick it, document goes, wait for funding. 5 days, prayer and fasting, waiting for that grant. But not knowing at the back end what our data is going to be used for. So I think we should spread the word to most of these people, and most of these people that are ignorant, most of them have our information, our contacts, emails, because we communicate to them on a daily basis or weekly basis. They can easily put maybe Dr. Sarah Vireta as a referee, put her email, office address, phone contact. That information will go. without her notice. So we should also pay attention to that. That's all I wanted to point out.
Thank you so much. I love the insurance point you brought. I think, colleagues, let's do it in our organizations. If you terminate a contract with them, maybe they need to delete your information, and they write to you that they have deleted the information. About sharing, yes, we need to be sharing more and more. Take the initiatives, and that's why I like what CCG has done. Probably for some of you, this is the first time you are doing this training. By the way, for those who are from NGOs, we are supposed to file, no, not only NGOs, everyone who is supposed to be registered with data protection, we are supposed to file data protection compliance reports. Deadline is 30th of this month. Today is when? 19th, 20th? Yeah, we have 10 days to go. We are supposed to file data compliance reports. Now, if you look at the data compliance report, one of the things they need you to explain is the data protection trainings you've had. So for those who have attended today, it's one of those things you can feel on that section of the form that you've had the training. They'll ask you about the training, the topics you covered, who did the training. Yeah, so maybe it's an opportunity for those. And maybe this makes it timely because since we don't get that much these kinds of trainings, so that would be a tick. Now, I wanted us to talk a bit more about our roles. But before I go to our roles, he talks about something about the links. One of the ways, very basic way, you know, before I became a lawyer, I used to be a blue hat in terms of computer stuff and hacking. And so one of the basic ways we used to do is, if you are suspicious of a link, do not open it where it has been delivered. If the link comes through WhatsApp and you are suspicious of it, copy it and paste it in your browser. You get? Because it could be designed to pick your WhatsApp information, but it won't find your WhatsApp information in the browser. If it has come through your email, still copy it, don't click on it. But only where you know, there are those which are obvious, you shouldn't even be opening them. Like I told you, UNICEF giving you free money. Or this other one where M7 is giving free money. You know M7 cannot give free money without announcing. So how can it be only through the link? You know, if government, just know your behavior of the people. If government of Uganda was to give free money, they will have a launch at Independence Ground and probably a launch at every district. And by the time we are done with 120 district, all the money has been spent in launches. So that's how we behave. Okay. Anyway, a few things I wanted to discuss here. We've already talked about, here I want data processors. I'm using the word processors just because the thing is too wordy, but I'm trying to mean roles and duties of processors, data collectors, data controllers, and people who store data. We defined them earlier on, and I believe they will share the first presentation. So these are things you need to do. You must follow Ugandan law. If you are collecting, processing, storing data. But these are some of the things you'll find in the law. You must register with the Data Protection Office. It's a must. It's a crime not to register. And if you think it is simple, just like I told you, I think a month back, Alphabet, the owners of Google, were ordered to register. And me, I feel like, okay, if the owners of Google are ordered to register and they go ahead and register, what about you, the small person? Because me, what I've seen is data protection office, what they do is, if me and Judith don't like each other, and I want to get at Judith, all I need to do is I go to data protection office. I said, Judith employs 5 people and she's not registered with data protection office. The next, she will be summoned to make a statement at police. It will give her enough headache and sweating to my enjoyment. Yes, and people are doing that. I've seen NGOs being summoned. I've sat in police CPS defending NGOs making statements. I've sat at the Chibuli CID headquarters. So please, register. The certificate is issued for 12 months. Renew that certificate 2 months before it expires. That's what the law says. Renew it 2 months before it expires. The other thing you need to do is identify a data protection officer. So many organizations, it's among your staff. You say, my staff so-and-so will be in charge of data protection, and all your staff must know that person. That person must know his or her duties. So I think I'll leave my contacts in case you doubt the duties. You can contact me and we shall talk to orient that person slightly more. So maybe, or you can contact CCG, they will come back to me and we see how to orient that person more. Because when Data Protection Office does audits, which they do, I was involved early this year where they were doing audits to some of the NGOs I know in Western Uganda. I know in Uganda like 3. Okay, I've been called to about 7 NGOs where they are doing audits. So when they come to do audit, of course, they will ask, do you have a data protection officer? Normally you say yes. Then you call my neighbor Judith, and then they say, okay, Judith, what is your role? And then start speaking in tongues. And the audit report will come out showing she doesn't. So identify the officers, but train them, make sure they know they are. That form I told you, which we fill YALE, the compliance report, at somewhere in it has a question. Maybe I should project that report as well, the template. It has a question whether the data protection officer, whether you've put in the JDs of the data protection officer, issues of data protection. When they do audit, they check that. So you need to make sure if you identify someone as the data protection officer, you might need to change the job description of that person to include data protection. And also when you are doing performance reviews, whichever form you use, include data protection for that person so that there are records showing that you've been doing this. Okay. You need to have a data protection and privacy policy. It's a must. There's no question about it. So once again, for the NGOs which are in here, we have a template which we give out for free. So feel free to contact CCG. They will be able to get to us, and we shall be able to give you at least a template that you can adjust to your institutional needs. But this is a must. It's also an issue that gets audited. It also gets audited, so it's something you need to look into. Then the other thing, data must be collected with free and informed consent. Did we all register there? There is a section where we ticked to allow photography or we ticked not to. We gave consent. So consent doesn't have to be complicated like, you know? You get, huh? So when we came here, we gave consent. Some of us gave consent that our photos should be taken and shared. I don't know if there are those who said no, but that's a simple thing. So free and informed consent. And it should be sought before. So if we are to use that example again, before someone took your photograph, you signed in that thing, not so? Yes. So it should be before data is collected. So there are exemptions to consent. The exemptions are if it's required by law. If data is required by law, there is no consent. So you are not going to go to NIDA and say, I never gave you consent. You're not going to go to URA, you're not going to go to NSSF, you get? Also, you're not going to go to your employer and you say, I never gave you consent, but you are here using my NSSF number and my bank account details. Because surely if you don't give your bank account details to your employer, how will you be paid? Okay, if you want, you can withdraw consent and we see how how it will play out. But there are those situations where consent might not be necessary. Under the performance of a contract, like the employer relation, you get? Then where it's necessary for medical treatment of the person. So some, you know, if the doctor says remove your clothes, you don't say my privacy. Of course, you can ask why. You can ask why. But, you know, so there, within medical, where like consent might not be sought to use your data. Now, this is where I have a big problem with health apps because they don't seek consent. Your data is always there and they keep reminding you how that car flu is wrong. Huh? But also my other advice, not related to this, is never Google your symptoms. Never Google. You'll Google headache and it will say it's Ebola. You know? So be careful with how these things are. Okay. What about when we are collecting personal data of a child? So I first posed who is a child. Do we all know who a child is? Who is a child? Yeah, anyone? So, you see, lawyers love to split hairs when we define things. Eh? She has said anyone below the age of 18. Does it mean the one who is 18 is exempt? Because the question is 18 below 18? Yes. So we understand, eh? Below 18, eh? Which doesn't mean 18. Eh? You see, I've had those situations where someone says, I'm 18 years, I'm still a minor. And I'm like, wait a moment, it's below 18. Okay. So, if you are collecting that of a child, you must get consent from, the legal word is someone in loco parentis. I wanted to avoid those legal things. Eh? So there is a guardian or parent, but someone in loco parentis means someone in charge of the child at that moment. You get? So if you go to a school, there is the school. But of course, there is also some data. That's why when they were doing immunization, the kids would come home with cheats where you have to sign. Yeah, I only had one of those rare things where they wanted to immunize a child without that cheat, and it didn't go well with the school. I won't mention the school. Though you might do away with consent, sorry. Okay, you must get it from a person who has authority to make a decision on behalf of the child, or where it's necessary to comply with the law. You see, like when schools are collecting UNEB data, because it's necessary, they don't seek consent sometimes. Where it's research and statistical purposes, for those where it is necessary with the law, like you boss, you get, or Ministry of Health. So for us, we can't do that. We must get consent. Okay, so what do we do?
On schools. So the habit of plastering names and faces of kids after results have been released in newspapers, how do we categorize that? As schools, so we can actually sue schools for doing that. But parents are also aiding and abetting this kind of practices.
Yeah, your question has two things. So where the parent just allows, there is consent, even for the results. But what I did last time, during last UNEB season, I made complaints against, I think against 3 schools, and they were ordered to put down the list. I had a complaint against Greenland, a complaint against Holmesdalen, and a complaint against, I forget the other school. Results. Some put results and the faces. In newspaper, on social media, because they need to seek consent from the parents. Even if you're excited that the children passed, as a school, all you can do is you can list and say, we got 50 first grades. But some schools will put the name of the child, index number, and no, even if you used index number. So let me go back to where we began. When we were beginning this morning session, we listed personal data, not so? And we said personal data is that data that can identify you. So the index number can identify the child. The name can identify. So that's personal data. So the Personal Data Protection Office has been very good in that, because all the complaints I made, they replied within like 6 hours. And all the schools were ordered to put down, because like they would give the schools, put this thing down within the next 1 hour, or we summon you to police. So that's how it was.
Thank you. In that regard, instead of having like a few schools that maybe you personally reported, wouldn't it have been better for the Data Protection Office to issue a nationwide guideline for something like that? Because at the end of the day, you open the newspaper and these kids' names are all there, and then you're like, okay, so it's an obvious violation, and the Data Protection Office can see it. Why not, instead of just waiting for a report to be made? The fact that there is a law and this law was not followed, especially as regards children, because they usually cannot stand up for themselves, and they cannot, don't you think it would have been better for maybe the Data Protection Office to create guidelines specifically for schools when it comes to students' data, and how it is shared, to whom it is shared, and which permissions they require? Even if it means maybe let's collaborate with like maybe CCG to offer trainings to schools in regards to data collection, data privacy, and data sharing. Things like
school to do that. In terms of Data Protection Office, maybe it's something we need to push them to do. We could do it with CCG. We could. It's something I see in positive. So maybe we could push them to give that directive so that the schools are not abusing the data. Okay. Now, before you collect the data, these are the do's. I'm sorry it's small, because when I came in the morning, I was complaining that this whole is like a train. So some people might not see because they are very far. But I'll try to explain a few things. So before collecting data, try to do the following. One, the data subject of the nature and category of data you are collecting from the person. We are collecting this kind of information and this is its nature. The name, address of the person responsible for collecting. Who is collecting this data? Like, it's CCG, this is, of course, sometimes there is no need to do the detailed explanation, you know? Like, by the time you guys came here, you knew CCG. So CCG wouldn't be giving you the name and address of who they are because, you know. But if you knocked on my door and you need data, that will happen. Okay, the purpose for which the data is required, purpose is very key because I can choose to opt out. Whether or not it's discretionary for me to opt out of the data or it's mandatory. I've seen the people I told you about coffee, they told me it's mandatory and I told them it's a lie because I know it's a lie. So I told them to go to hell. The consequences of failure to provide the data, again, the coffee people told me the consequences of me not providing the data is my coffee will have no market, and I told them it's okay. I'll find a market. But it's also wrong because the requirements for that data come from the EU, and I was asking them, do you now mean the coffee we export to Sudan? Sudan is one of the biggest buyers of Ugandan coffee. It's actually the second. So does it mean Sudan also, you will stop taking coffee to Sudan because Europe has set some standards? So it seems the person didn't understand. The authorized requirement for collection of information of data required by law. Yeah, are you registered with data protection? Do you have a data protection policy? Blah, blah, blah. Who is going to receive this data? Maybe CCG will use it as is, or we are taking it to so and so. The extent of a right of access and the right to request rectification. How can I access my data when I need it? When they say, no, you can't access, maybe I might also choose not to give. Maybe you can access this data by sending an email or making a call. You see, some people make it very hard to access even your own data. And me, I have this habit. If it's very hard to access my own data, then I won't give you my data. Okay? The period for which data will be retained. I remember someone who asked about your photo on the website. The period for which it should be retained. How long are you going to use my data? Because it's very key. When the period expires, you should destroy my data or get back to me and I tell you it's okay, continue using the data. Okay. Now, this period issue might also be included in your data protection policy. So you specify how long you are going to keep the data. Some data, laws provide for it. For example, Anti-Money Laundering Act says you should keep data for 10 years. The other accounting law, I forget its name, says you should keep it for 3 years. No, there's one which says 7 and one says 3. But it shows how confused we are, the country. Every law says its own thing. Okay, further processing. You know, we may collect data and then we need to do further processing of data. We collected data for purposes of attendance lists, not so? So we have attendance lists. But then we might reach a point and we say, but we have all the youths, maybe from this area, that data is in our attendance list. So we have to make two choices. Go back to the youth and collect data for that purpose, or use the data we have, analyze it for that purpose. But the law requires that if you want to use the data you have, now that this purpose was not the purpose for which you collected it, you need to inform the data subject that we shall, do you object to this kind of processing? Okay. Okay. So when you're doing further data processing, you should consider these. The relationship between the purpose of the intended further processing and the reason you collected it. I'll give you an example. If this data was collected as attendance lists for today, not so? If you are going to process it further, you can process it further for something related to this. You know? I'll give you an example. If auditors went to CCG and they want to know, did Peter actually attend that workshop? So the auditor can pick the phone I provided and call me. That is within the limits. You get? But now, if that auditor wants to pick those numbers so as to send me messages on how he's running an audit firm, that is totally outside the purpose for which the data was collected. So he will need my consent. And so when you are further processing, you need to process it within the framework for which you collected the data. The nature of the data concerned, because some data is quite sensitive. Some data is not that sensitive, but some other is quite sensitive. The manner in which the data was collected, how much did you get consent? So, sometimes it's very hard to not consent because of the way the data is collected. I'll give you an example. The example I've used already. You check in a hotel, they want your ID, and you feel like, okay, maybe I should not come in. So if it's you who has booked the hotel, you can always tell them, okay, let me go to the next hotel. If you've come for a workshop, then you'll be like, now I'm going to just make life hard for the people who called me for this workshop. Just like in the morning, I walk in here, the lady at reception is taking my private data. I could have chosen to ask, I need a policy. Are you registered? Are you, bring the manager here. You get? But then I would be making it so hard for the workshop to even happen. So I was like, let me just put minimal. Yeah. So then the consequences of further processing should also be considered when you are doing further processing. Then contractual obligations. Sometimes you have contractual obligations. Like, again, if I can use her example, she had a contractual obligation at the time the employee put her photo on the website. Now the contractual obligation has ended. Question is, can now the employee put it in their annual report? Yes. Yes.
So URA went and they wanted to sell a certain type of wood in Liberty. So when the person who was taking photos ended up taking photos of the person who was showing them what they are going to put on auction. Around, Yes. So now when these people were uploading the images for auctioning, that now the photos that they uploaded had the other person's photo. So meaning, when someone was buying, that means you're also buying the other person inclusive. So when we went there to ask these people to show us the wood that they are selling, the person was like, no, I cannot show. Because how can URA put my photo among the things they are selling? That means they are also selling me. So URA has to first remove that photo on the system, but they didn't. But still, now there are certain things you look at because you're taking a photo of someone and you just upload it without even asking. Yet the person gave you almost like 100 photos. But now this person ended up just choosing one photo that So it became a problem.
Yeah, for you are actually the bigger problem. For you are saying that they are selling this person. You see, normally URA doesn't own property. So that is property they've grabbed from people. Or okay, they've taken from people maybe for not paying taxes and all that. And then here is your face. You are the one who is selling it. I don't know how the owner feels about you. And it can bring in some safety and security concerns. So that's why it wouldn't be that. But also us, as we take photos, sometimes we just, in my other life, I don't consider myself a photographer, but in my other life, I do photography. And I've done photography. I've published a photography book and won a Global Award. So in the other life, I do some of those things. But what I've known is avoid people who bomb your photos. You know photo bombing? Like, because you are taking a photo and that guy walks in and you capture him and you put that thing public and that guy turns out, goes to court, goes everywhere, like disorganizes a very innocent, For you are taking a group photo and for him he was walking behind. And he just, now try to avoid that. And of course, I've seen, one thing you might have never noticed, I know each of us in this office, in this room has a camera. Cameras see more than we do. I don't know if you've ever noticed. So if you took a photo of this, the way we are seated here, there's a certain detail my eye might not have seen, but it will appear in the camera. And then you'll be like, now how did we get here? So you just need to avoid that. Yeah, but back to this, the contractual obligations between the subject, because those are very important. They could lead to abuse or legal action. Now, the last bit I wanted to talk about is the principle of minimality. That's what disturbs me. So, but it means you collect data, only data that you want. Only data that serves the purpose for which you are collecting should be the only data you collect. So collect data. If you are collecting data, for example, for maybe what? Okay, let me go back to the simple example of the hotel. You are collecting data for people who have entered these premises today. The principle would require you to only collect data that relates with that purpose. And that's why I was telling the lady down there that collecting data for where I stay is outside the requirement. Say, I've been to other hotels and offices and they are collecting your NIN. Like you sign in and then there is NIN, and I tell them, why do you need my NIN? You need to know I've come here, why have I come here, what time I've entered, what time I've left. So what do you need my NIN for? I've been to offices where they say, yeah, you're a visitor, leave your ID and take this one. And I ask them, why? Why do I need to leave my ID with you? Then I take your thing which says I'm a visitor. Because I only need to take that thing which says I'm a visitor. You look at my ID says I'm called Peter Majela. You're like, yes, he's the one. Okay, you bring me back my ID, you give me the thing which will announce to everyone in the hall that I'm a visitor, and when I'm done, I return your thing. That's it. So this principle requires that if you are collecting data, collect only data that is necessary for the purpose that you are going to do. Don't collect data beyond the purpose. And that's why some of us withhold our data, because we feel you're collecting more than but it also requires me to know why you are collecting my data. For example, the reason I don't accept cookies is I never know why they are collecting my data. So when there is, if I must visit your site, I will reject the cookies and visit. If I see like you don't even have the option for rejecting, I go to another website. I don't even waste my time. I just go to the next. Okay, so I want to stop here. I don't know how we are doing in terms of time. 12:52. So, you see, on the program, the last thing is supposed to be wrap up, then question and answer. And I think I've answered all the questions. So, maybe if there is more, we can do that. Okay, the mic is in front of you.
Okay, so my one only question is when you spoke about how we must always fight for our rights and all that, which is okay. My issue when it comes to data protection is the ability of the Data Protection Office to implement a lot of these requirements, especially when it comes to digital data. Okay, as you said, there's recently the Google case that the judgment has been passed, and Google is now required to, deposit some things with the Data Protection Office and also comply with the Data Protection Act. However, the question is whether or not that decision shall be implemented, and whether or not the Data Protection Office will also be able to not only implement towards other big tech companies, but also hold them accountable for data breaches. Because at the end of the day, the place where we lose most of our data is through online and digital channels. Because every small click you make is a digital footprint that is counted against you. Even that most unserious click that you made is data that has been taken that is going to be used. So for me, and I ask this because I have been in a conference where the director for the Data Protection Office was, in attendance, and she was answering questions. And I did ask her at the time about the office's ability to implement, and she straight up did not lie to me, and she was like, we do not have that capacity right now. And my problem with this is, now that we have a judgment, isn't it going to be another of those useless judgments that we have that we can look at? It's very good jurisprudence, but it is not really going to do much. So I want to know, because at the end of the day, this is precedent. If we cannot hold Google accountable, it means we cannot hold any of the others accountable as well. So if Google can blatantly, disregard the judgment, the requirements, it means everybody else can. And under this entire, data protection and the implementability capability, also I feel like there's a need to discuss, since I'm glad you mentioned the fact that because we are a small country and a small market portion, we don't usually affect the end, financial books. So the question is, would it be different if, because after all, the Data Protection Act is fashioned after the European Union's GDPR, yeah? So since the GDPR is implemented by European Union, wouldn't the data protection laws be more substantial and easily, okay, not easily, but easier to implement if maybe the East African community was to implement it instead, things like that?
Thank you. Yeah, let's take another.
It's not much, it's just something small. It's by making it discretionary to register with the Data Protection Office, isn't there some sort of laxity on their part? And I ask because when you were sharing about who a data controller is, who a data processor is, everyone falls in this category. Every company in Uganda falls in this category. I had the chance to go there at their office on Numumba, I think yesterday, for a very sad matter that had still data. And they had it pinned there that it's 100,000. So is it a money collection scheme, or are they extremely serious that, you know what, if you're actually processing data, as is everyone, then you must register? The scenario I was thinking about is consultants. You get consultants, they have access to all, they have access to the institute, but none of them has they don't have a data processing sort of permit to sort of know that as a consultant. The framework there is it's shaky. It's very, very shaky, because if it is a must, then the payment scheme is also something else. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, is this one I'm asking you as an expert, if there is really some sort of central processing unit for these big tech companies. I've come to see that, yes, we are a small market, but the way that the internet works is that there is such an overlap between what the state must do, then what internet companies must do, because the internet is not just another product, it is access to information. So there is the relationship there is very, I don't know what symbiotism is very much, but it is like the government sort of has a power over private companies in that regard. So it is not, it won't suffice to do that, to say that because we are a small market, we can actually be ignored when it comes to what? To Facebook. There is a right there that is being what? Violated. So for me, it's really your opinion on what privatization of the access to information, and then these people's right to make their money. Then the other one is really just from an experience that we keep having as CSOs. You write to government companies, you write to government companies and they don't respond, yet they have public information. They actually ignore your letters and you write and write. So in line with us having data protection laws, isn't an institution that actually has data and is called upon to give that data constitutionally, their refusal to give that information, aren't there questions there? My last question is on products. And it really came when people were talking about these machines that block the service or things. Yeah? I was thinking, when you go to a shop and you're buying cameras, is there really any vigilance? Where are you going to put these cameras? Eh? Do these people have a form that says that these cameras shall be used between the geographical bounds of this and this? Or is there an international organization that says that this particular type of make of an electronic device is to be sold to these and these particular what? Service providers for these and these purposes? That device that you are sharing that blocks the what? The network. I am so sorry, I'm not an expert. So that blocks the network. That is extremely problematic, that such a product is on the market for anyone to buy. That product should be reserved for people who show cause as to why they should have it. I should not have it unless I show that maybe I'm having a stalker that is whose calls are intercepting. So even here on product usability and whatever legal jargon is there to call it, there is still a problem in how we are regulating what? It's really, for me, it's really just a lot to learn. Thank you so much.
As they bring others, you see, I've personally litigated against big tech twice. And I've learned one thing. They fear a bad name. On the question on whether, for example, Google would comply, chances are high that they would, because they have nothing to lose. They won't lose their market. It's not costly on their side. You get. Chances are that they would lose. But in terms of other big techs, experience has shown me that unless someone takes it up, for example, Alphabet was taken up by, I think, about 4 people who went to data protection office and complained against Alphabet. So unless we comply, no one will take such things up. And I'm very glad that those people did. Let's not expect every big tech to comply, because many of them ignore. But when they ignore, we also need to take the stakes high. For example, how do we use other mechanisms? If Google ignored this order, probably would pick it and take it to the EU, would take it to the US stock exchange regulator. Like we put pressure on them, they will eventually take some steps. So it's incremental. In terms of capacity, indeed, the DPO doesn't have capacity to enforce this. When you look at this law, you realize like nearly every small organization in this country should be registered with them. And they haven't. They've registered just those that they can. So they don't have capacity indeed. And I think someone also asked whether this is a money-making venture. Yes, it makes government money. If we are 2,000 NGOs and each of them is paying 100,000 per year, that's some good money, really. So yes, there's an aspect of it being a money-making venture, but also an aspect of data protection. When I'm saying an aspect of data protection, at least the little complaints that I've seen go there, they've taken steps to address them. And maybe if we overwhelm them with the complaints, it's when maybe we can tell that these guys don't work. It's also possible that they've responded to all the complaints we've filed just because they have a handful. Like they keep there waiting for someone to complain and no one complains. So when one complains, No, I don't think they have like 1,000 complaints in a year. I don't think. Because there are very few people who even know about this personal data protection and all that, and the need for them to like take on these issues. Now, about, let me see, the products. You see, each territory, by territory I mean government and sometimes the state, has its own laws around the products which are allowed in or not. For example, in Uganda, bringing in a drone, this drone to take photographs, you have to be cleared by security. It's quite tight to bring in a drone. But then my experience with Uganda is sometimes these guys even don't know. You bring in a technology and they have no clue. It just passes. Like now, in other countries like US, some of these things are easy. Just like I told you, some of these jammers in US, when you read like on Amazon, they are as cheap as $40, $50. Just how much is $50 in Uganda shillings? About 151,000. About 150,000 shillings. Some of them as cheap as that, because in those territories, like in US where they are used, they are not so much of a security threat. They are not so much of a concern. So now, consider this to you're buying a CCTV system for your house. In Uganda, CCTV is not a concern. In any case, it is a security issue. So when you are buying CCTV cameras, it's okay. But if I bought a CCTV camera and placed it in such a way that I can see what's in my neighbor's compound, now that's where things now become, that's when I start crossing the line. Now, it's possible that in that case, government might be interested in use as opposed to purchase, because I might be the only one in the whole district who is using the CCTV to see what's in my neighbor's compound, while the rest of the people are using the CCTV to protect themselves. So it would be unfair to block importation and sale of CCTVs because there's a potential that someone can put it in, someone can abuse it. So instead, government concentrates on the one who is abusing it and lets the ones who are using the system for a normal way go ahead and use the system. Now, about Uganda being a small market, indeed it's a small market, and sometimes these companies will ignore us. Actually, to me, I'm not concerned even being a small market. I'm even happy that some companies are even here. The companies I'm worried about are the guys who are online. You won't see them. You give them your data, and they use them as they wish. Those I find them a bit more dangerous. I know, what was the name of the company? It had problems with elections in the US and in Kenya. Cambridge Analytica, yes. So I don't know, since we started talking about data protection, if anyone thought about Cambridge Analytica. It's there, collects personal data to an extent of influencing an election in the US, not in some third world country, because the only two countries it has been accused of influencing elections was US and Kenya. Now, it's quite hard. You can't even go to DPO and say, Cambridge Analytica should be registered, should have this and this and this, because they can't tell if even it's in Uganda. Remember how Cambridge Analytica worked. It picked data mainly from Facebook and influenced mainly people on Facebook. So those who were using other platforms did not have. So who knows? Tomorrow there will be another one which says, okay, Ugandans are mainly on WhatsApp. I find it strange, maybe someone needs to explain to me, why is it that Ugandans are on WhatsApp business? They don't sell anything, but they all have. It's very rare to find a Ugandan who is on WhatsApp. The other ordinary WhatsApp, they are all on WhatsApp business, and I've never understood why. No, they can network on the other one, because this one was meant to be selling and buying things. But all Ugandans are on that one, and they sell nothing there. So maybe someone will come through WhatsApp and then say, okay, I have all this data of Ugandans who are using WhatsApp, and that might be very hard for our regulators in Uganda to control. To me, I find there is a bigger danger there. And the truth is, there is little we can do. I use WhatsApp less after they introduced those other limitations. So I use Telegram and Signal more, but I'm leaving Telegram because of three cases. One is there's a lot of pornography on Telegram. So, and that pornography has tended to come from Twitter, from X. Yes, the thing is that, so X has a lot of pornography, and that pornography tends to be linked to Telegram. So I'm using Telegram less. I'm trying to find an alternative for X. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Blue Sky. Okay, maybe I'll try that. I don't know if you've noticed there's too much pornography on X. X. Yeah, you can flag it, but it's just in thousands. Yeah, yeah. So you can filter. That's why I'm trying to leave Telegram. The other thing is because Telegram has also been so much, I find it problematic that it gives me a lot of Russia and Israel content. Yes, and I'm like, yeah, even the Israel army is there. Not that I have anything against Israeli army, but but I'm not interested. So then I use Signal. The unfortunate bit with Signal is very few Ugandans are there. So we are only few people who can, who can communicate with each other. So, yeah. But the whole thing I'm telling you this is, yes, there are companies which might be collecting Ugandan data that we don't know. And there's very little we might do about them because they are not in Uganda. Two is, you're in charge of your own data. Be in charge of your own data. If you don't feel good about it, don't give them your data. It's as simple as that. Yeah. If you give your data everywhere, it will be everywhere. Yes. Do we have other questions? And maybe we look at the time as well. It's 1:13. We've overshot. Okay. So. Okay. So, thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you. Yes. Just to reemphasize the 2 or 3 action points that I shared is you might need to register yourself for data protection. Please go and see that. Because you might be committing a crime as an organization, a special organization. 2, as an organization, you need to identify a person in charge of data protection. And we committed, I will do it through CCG. So if you identify a person and came up with. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magela Peter, for taking us through this animal called Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019 and 2021 regulation. Of course, if Christmas was next week, I would have bought for you a cake and a Coke, but now it's unfortunate Christmas is still in December. Yeah, he has really taken us through the overview of this framework, also the scope and its applicability, rights of data subjects, the role and duties of data collectors, data processors, and controllers, and then registration and compliance obligations. And of course, he also emphasizes the need for us to be in charge of our personal data. If you are not conscious about your personal data, your data will be anywhere. So, protecting data begins with us, because you know where we are now. Once you are really loose on your data can be used anywhere for any purpose. You might be there, then they knock on your door for an issue that you even don't know. Not because you participated in that crime, but it is because you're a little bit lax in protecting your data. And of course, he also emphasized the need for us as CSOs to register with the National Data Protection Office, because it's now, NGOs now we are targets. So if you do not really register with this office, it can be a source of closing out our organizations. Without wasting much time, because I know we have overlapped, let me take this opportunity to welcome our director, Dr. Sarah Birete, to come and give us her closing remarks, and then we break off for lunch and depart.
When you speak last, you stand between between people's lunch, and
yourselves, I wish to first of all invite you to join me, thank our facilitator for the work well done. Peter, thank you. As he was taking us through, and especially the light moment, the issue of that vacuum cleaner taking pictures. Like, why would you buy a vacuum cleaner with a camera? For what? But it should just have, I don't know. So why does it capture?
The camera helps the system to see.
Then it started seeing the wrong thing.
Yes.
You know, and when you protect your data, you don't need to speak about it. I also remembered the Electoral Commission guy in Kenya who went to media bragging that for now anybody to access electoral data, they need his thumbprint. Only for him to be kidnapped and murdered, and the hand was chopped off, so people stole the thumbprint. So you need also to be careful not to mention how you've protected your data. In that protection, I also remembered the last light moments of facial ID. When you come from the bathroom and you want to access your phone and it locks you out with a wet face or wet fingers. And there's a video of a man who had a smart door. And it rained on him, and he was locked out of his house. Because he was wet, so the face was wet, the fingers were wet, and the door locked until he called the company. But that means he stayed there in the cold. So we need also to be selective on how we apply these safeguards and for what. But generally, it has been a morning well spent. I think we are in the middle of the afternoon. I hope you have learned as much as we have. And reflecting not only on the legal and technical aspects of data protection, but also ethical and human rights violations. We live in a digital era where personal data is very variable. Every time we share information, whether it's a phone number, a photograph, or medical record, we entrust someone with a piece of our lives. With this trust comes responsibility to protect that data with integrity, transparency, and accountability. The other day, I refused to give my ID to NTV. I know Judith is associated. Is associated with the nation media. And I told the security, if you invite me for your TV program, if you don't know me, why are you inviting me? The best I can do is sign in a book, but I'm not going to share my ID with anyone. If you don't need me, I don't earn a living from talk shows. I can go to my work. So from this training, we have this knowledge on the principles of data protection, our duties, and how people should handle our data. But knowledge alone is not enough. The real challenge lies in how we apply the knowledge we've acquired to hold the people we entrust our data with to account, but also interact with those who trust us with their personal information. So for the NGOs, I hope you will share the information in your reports when you get back to office so that other people who are not here in this room are able to share the information. You can also tell them to watch the training link on Civic Space TV, which is also digital. And we hope that YouTube protects our data. I encourage all of you to become champions of privacy in your respective fields to promote awareness. like I have stated, strengthen compliance by integrating data protection principles into policies and practices, but also lead by example by showing that privacy and innovation can go hand in hand. Allow me now to, as I conclude, to express my sincere appreciation to the organizers, the teams at CCG and the Civic Space TV, the facilitator, and also to all of you, the participants, for the commitment and the active engagement. This is not the end of this conversation. We shall continue with the conversation on the digital platforms using the hashtags, but also let's make this the beginning of a stronger culture for data protection for personal and also institutional benefit. I thank you very much. I hope that, I don't know, Judith, if you will share the logistical information, but I know that the team has prepared lunch.
Thank you, Doctor. I think she deserves another round of applause. Yeah, they say that when your boss speaks, there's nothing much you can add. So at this juncture, I would like to invite you over to lunch, most of you. Yeah, before we go for lunch, we shall go for